across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you to Alex Phillips. Back, of course, tomorrow morning at 10, right here at the home of Common Sense. Loads to get through this afternoon. Britain's economy, terrible news in that respect. Flatlining in January. Big blow to Rachel Reeves and the government as she prepares to deal with the fallout from the war in Iran. There is, law of physics, kids, a knock-on effect to everything. Reactions and actions, of course, in the economic field are causing this government no end of woes. We'll come to that in a couple of moments' time. Also this afternoon, a trustee of the charitable arm of the group behind the banned Al-Quds Day March yelled death to the IDF and said that Iran's late leader makes us proud. This was at last weekend's demonstration. And they're still hoping to do the same this weekend. They can't have a protest, but they can have a static moment, which apparently is where they just sort of hang around but don't walk anywhere. Why are they even allowed that, by the way? And 50 Labour councillors have now defected to the Greens within the past 6 months ahead of the May 7th local elections. What is the significance of that? And what on earth would you have to be teased by in the Green department in order to cross the floor in this respect? More on those stories, everything that happens, all the breaking news right here on Talk. 0344 499 1000. So here's the question. How do we kickstart the UK economy?
I know that whatever's going on in the world, the most important thing to the vast majority of people is the cost of living.
So the cost of living is the thing that's most important to the vast majority of people. Sorry, that was the wrong clip, by the way. But it did essentially tell a similar story. The UK economy unexpectedly failed to grow in January ahead of the outbreak of the US-Israeli war with Iran. The zero growth for the month was weaker than had been predicted and followed growth at 0.1% in December. So December was pretty bad. January was non-existent. The overall picture is subdued, said the Office for National Statistics, while analysts called it disappointing for the start of the year. Keir?
I know that whatever's going on in the world, the most important thing to the vast majority of people is the cost of living.
Yes, it is the most important thing, Keir Starmer. The figures, however, underscore that the economy was fragile even before the outbreak of the Middle East conflict. So you can keep using that, and boy, they will keep using that. But it's caused a major energy shock, which has rippled effects around the world and, of course, to here as well. But we weren't doing good to begin with. And there's the problem for this government. The service sector, no growth. Eating out and restaurants, flatlining. Construction, hardly a move. The last 6 months have been an economic nightmare for this country. We are in cardiac arrest territory. One more knock, and yes, I know we had COVID, I know we had Ukraine, I know we've now got Iran, but one more knock, and we are absolutely scuppered. The huge implications are vast. So how do we kickstart the UK economy? We all moan about it, right? We all have a little whinge and go, God, a bloody government, they can't even get this one right. Rachel Reeves, I don't know what she's doing. Get your abacus out, Keir. Come on, sort it. What is the answer? How do we kickstart the UK economy? Is there a single one or a set of basic principles that could be undertaken to send us northwards to those sunny uplands that every Prime Minister seems to have been promising for the last decade? This lot, the Labour government, have taken a bad situation into the swamp. We are drowning here. We can no longer afford some of the... I mean, just tell me this, by the way, when it comes to stuff you used to do that can't do. We were just talking about this in the office. Even if you are earning okay, you will notice that at the end of the month, when you know there's a bit left over on your bank balance, that's just got smaller and smaller. You notice that going to the cinema with your kids or whatever just costs a little bit more. You notice getting a takeaway meal is the kind of amount you'd pay previously to go to a restaurant for a sit-down lunch. All of these things are happening. What are you in your own circumstances, clocking in that respect? What have you had to stop doing or at least cut back on as a result of the cost of living crisis? This is now firmly under Labour's umbrella. They can't blame the previous government. It's been like this for the last 6 months. It's been like this before the Iran war. It's going to get worse. How do we kickstart the UK economy? We'll take your calls on that. 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile and elsewhere.
Fox News alert. Sources telling Fox News the truck that the suspect used to ram a Michigan synagogue is registered to a naturalized U.S. citizen, this time from Lebanon.
Yeah. This is the mad Islamist who drove his car into a synagogue in Michigan in the US. Ayman Mohammed Ghazali clearly thought he was Superman until armed guards opened fire and blew his head off. Although officially they haven't said that that was the cause of death. I think it might probably end your days. Are we going to see more of this? It's a quick question really about the safety of our own streets in this country, not just across the world, but literally over here. Every terror attack in this country in recent times has been carried out by Islamists. We know this. We have terror sympathisers that lurk among us. They preach on the streets. They organise protests. They pollute universities, with some of them even get elected, by the way. We have thousands of them in this country. We should be diligent. Remember, for these perverted fantasists, dying is an honour. So that is what you're up against. When you're up against an enemy that don't care about dying, that is, in many respects, their greatest weapon. Should the UK be on high alert over this? Let's start with those Al-Quds demos, which have been cancelled. The protest has been cancelled. We're going to come on to this a bit more in a second. So they've cancelled the protest, the march, but they can apparently have a static protest. Is that a little bit like musical statues, that if one of them moves, then suddenly, that's it, come on, you're coming with it? How does that even work, for God's sake? It's a protest, even if you don't move too much. I have no idea how this bunch of terrorist-loving half-wits would even be allowed out in public, let alone to have a demo of any kind. But should we be on high alert now, when you consider that has just happened in Michigan in the US? We are likely to see around the world more of this as the Iran war goes on. And we may not have British boots on the ground, but we are involved. Your thoughts on that as well? 0344 499 1000. Thankfully, Dave Wooding is with us. Dave, good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, Ian.
Columnist with The Sun, political journalist, lots to look at here. It is the old flatlining story. The economy is in the doldrums. Literally no growth at all in January. I mean, it was a bit rubbish in December, for goodness sake. January's taken it to new levels. This is potentially pretty lethal stuff for a government, right?
Yeah.
Too many of these and you've got a problem.
Well, zero growth and zero hope as well, because I mean, there were predictions we're going to get 1% growth maybe next year. That's now been, Capital Economics have now put that down for this year to 0.1%, and even the most optimistic growth forecasts are 0.4 and 0.6%.
Yeah.
So it's really, really poor, really sluggish. Of course, the Iran war has done nothing to help, because inflation has been stoked up by that, which means, incidentally, that we've got in the next day or two the Bank of England meeting to decide whether to cut interest rates. That's seeming less and less likely, because inflation is going to rocket as a result of this. So it really is a case of, because the economy is in such a bad state, it's not strong enough to survive or cope with what's going on in Iran. That petrol prices, oil prices, gas prices are just going to stoke everything up, make everything worse, and the chances are in the right mess here.
But Dave, don't worry about this, because Keir Starmer has our backs. If you don't believe me, have a listen to this.
We're setting out for growth, which is the number one priority of this government, growing our economy, wealth creation. We turn the economy around, get the growth that we need, which I'm absolutely certain we can get. What I will say is that growth is the number one priority of this government. Economic growth, wealth creation, making sure that people are better off. Growth, 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 growth.
Growth, 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 growth. Unfortunately, there is no growth, 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 isn't it?
No.
Nothing at all.
And they talked about growth before we ran into the current geopolitical situation with Iran. So what chance we have of it now is anyone's guess. The other thing is that the Chancellor can do some things, of course. She can do something about the fuel tax. The 5% discounts. You know, there's talk about doing away with the help that was given to keep prices down during COVID, and she's going to do away with that. Obviously that has to be reserved now and reversed now, and we have to keep the 5p discounts. But we need to cut state spending. Again, we're being asked to spend more money on defence because of the situation.
Yes.
If not the situation now, which has been badly exposed, our inability to get a warship into the zone. Even now, we've got one on the way, but we even now we haven't got one there. And at the same time, taxes are sky high. Spending on benefits is nearing 330 billion pounds.
It is absolutely.
I mean,
ludicrous.
so cuts have got to be made somewhere. But we have a Prime Minister who is too weak to use his majority to steamroll those through because
he
the
tried,
backbenchers
didn't he? I mean, I say he tried. I mean, I don't know how hard he really tried, but they had. You're right. The backbenchers, when it came to welfare, you know, it was up there with invading another country. That's how angry these people were. And you think, who are these people? How do they get elected? How do people? How does that even work? I was looking at this. Just a slightly separate point, but the new MP for the Green Party who won the by-election, did you see what she turned up in Parliament wearing? I mean, she looked like, do you remember Rod, Jane and Freddie from Rainbow? She looked like one of them, and I thought, what's happened to decorum in politics? I mean, there's always been a bit of a debate. Do you remember the, wearing the tie thing, and, should you have to wear a tie, should you not? You certainly expect that kind of almost sixth form student mentality, whether it's what you're wearing or what you're saying, exists on those Labour benches.
It does. It's a them and us student politics mentality. Welfare, people on welfare are all good people and they all deserve the money. In the same way, people who commit crimes are often seen as victims of society. I mean, remember Tony Blair? He had to get his crackdown on crime through. He had to say tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime, because tough on the causes of crime were what the left wing want. They don't really want to be tough on crime. They want to be tough on the causes of crime, social deprivation. And in the same way, benefits is seen as the poor people in society who need our help. And look, people who are on benefits deserve to have a safety net there. If they, for no fault of their own, find themselves on hard times, the welfare state is there to look after them. But there are undoubtedly a large proportion of people who choose it as a lifestyle, and they're the people who need to be tackled. As well as people who, because there are no skills in this country, need retraining so that we can get them into work. But of course, it's just easier to carry on paying the money out than come up with a suitable strategy for some people.
Indeed. Anthony says, I'm going to ask you, this is completely off-piste, this, Dave. It was a conversation I had with Alex Phillips earlier about journalists' contact books, which are now largely in people's phones. But we all remember a bulging Filofax, or a particularly battered moleskin or whatever it happened to.
Those,
so I've got a few of those knocking around. But Alex mentioned Rolodexes, the little filing system. And Anthony has said it's Rotodex, not Rolodex. Well, that's not true, is it? It's a Rolodex. The little filing thing that was on a wheel. It was on a spinning wheel.
I think it was, yes.
That's a Rolodex.
I think it was a Rolodex.
It's a card filing device.
I had a... Yes, and you used to clip them on, and then you press the letter you wanted, and it would scroll round.
You could do it that, there were variants of it.
Yeah, I remember those. I remember seeing them in the office. I've got 2 or 3 old contacts books, which are all battered, but I can't throw them out in case I need an old number at some stage. But I bought one of those cyan organisers. Do you remember them?
I loved the cyan organiser.
It was about that big, and you opened it.
It was sort of oyster-like,
yes,
wasn't it?
And you opened it up and you keyed in the numbers.
That was the first bit of kit. And I thought, this is unbelievable.
It had all sorts on it. You could do your finances on it, or you could check. You could put in spreadsheets. You could.
Do you know? I had a company. I was on air at the time, and I had a company. A Rotodex is just a file thing, isn't it? It's just a box to put a file in.
Right. I've had them as well.
That's
They're
just
like boxes, and you lift the lid up, and there's little A to Z, and you put the cards in, so you could type in your.
Is that what one of those is?
Yeah, that's probably one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
something like that. Yeah. So both things exist. Is the point?
Yeah.
Cyan Organiser, a company, like a PR company, years ago, sent me one. They sent me one when I was at work, and I thought, this is amazing. And I spent ages putting every single contact into this thing. And I thought, I loved it. It was neat. It looked good. Very few people had to put it in your inside pocket. It was great. And I kept it. And about 5 months later, they said, "Oh, can we have it back, please?" So after I've done all of that, after I put every number in, there were hundreds of them in there. They wanted it back.
But you could have a little. What was it, like a little memory stick which you stuck in the side?
Yeah, I don't think I got that far.
If you did that, you might have been okay. I've still got mine, but I don't know why I keep it, because it
wouldn't really be of any use, would it? Now it would just sit in isolation. It wouldn't
stuck
work.
In a drawer somewhere, the bottom of the drawer, with other
somebody will pay good money for that.
Material like that.
Somebody will pay good money for that, Dave. We're going to be back in a couple of moments. Who knows what we're going to be talking about in the next section? We're certainly asking, how do we kickstart the UK economy? What's the process there? What are we looking at here? Is this about rules and regulations around the workplace? That's upset a lot of employers who say we're struggling to hire because we can't afford to hire people. In fact, some have had to try and get rid of people. We've seen youth unemployment in particular rising, which is not the usual direction of travel. So there's that. Is it something more kind of fundamental? Welfare, as Dave was just saying, do we just need to be honest about those budgets and say these are not sustainable by any measure? More on that. How do we kickstart the UK economy? Your suggestions on that. Also, on a personal level, what have you had to cut back on? What can you no longer afford, or what don't you spend as much on as you once did? 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. David Wooding is with us from The Sun, a political journalist of years' worth of experience. And, of course, each time there's a new sort of political era, Dave, you think, well, you know, are we in a different time? Has it always been weird like this? Every government, you know, naturally gets analysed, and, you know, they have their ups and their downs. This particular era we're in is it just me? We've both been doing this job a long time. It does feel there's something different about this at the moment.
I think it's the last 10 years. We always had a summer break where you could take if you're in Parliament, a 3-week holiday as a journalist, and then the other 3 or 4 or 5 weeks of the summer recess, you could come in 2 days a week, maybe work from home, have one person on the desk instead of 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Just to manage what was going on over the summer and get enough stuff to tick over. The silly season, as we called it. Yeah. There is no silly season now. And there hasn't been, I reckon, since around 2010. So 15, 16 years. First we had a coalition, so that became a busy time. We had negotiations after the fall of that government. It really kicked off. The silly season really went in 2015. Tories won an election, so we spent all summer dealing with the new government fitting in and the reshuffles and the new programme for power. And then we had the referendum in 2016.
Of course.
So all the way through the build-up to the referendum. Then after the referendum, which happened in June, all through that summer was Brexit chaos. Yeah. Not chaos caused by Brexit, chaos caused by the MPs trying to stop it.
Yeah, yeah.
So you had all that summer. Then you had 2017, the same change of leadership again. Theresa May was brought down first, Cameron first, Theresa May. Then Boris came in. Then you had COVID in 2020. No sooner did you come out of Brexit, we just delivered it. Then
COVID came in.
And then, of course, we had Partygate and everything. So summer never really happened in terms of quiet spells. And now we've got a new government here with a landslide, and we've had, in the last 2 years, nothing but chaos from them, and now we've got a war.
And now we've got a war as well. I remember Pascoe Watson saying to me in about 2016, one of the problems with Brexit is we will talk about this for the next decade. Yeah. And he was right about that, because and we're still talking about it to a degree. So we've got all of that going on, and you're right. We've had Ukraine, we've had COVID, and all of these things sort of feed in. The cost of living thing we're talking about, the factors are huge. And we had the whole wheat thing with Ukraine. We've got oil with Iran. I mean, so the knock-on effects are quite massive.
Absolutely. And if you had a government in place where you felt that they at least had a plan for managing the economy, you might not feel as downbeat about it, but everything's conspiring against us at the moment.
Indeed. Let's move to this story, Dave. A person called Raza Kazim, who's a trustee of the charitable group that organises the Al-Quds Day March, was filmed at a separate protest yelling death to the IDF and praising the late Ayatollah, saying he makes us proud. This is somebody that lives here, by the way. You'd think they'd be in jail. Home Secretary Sabana Mahmood, of course, banned the march, but a static demonstration will still go ahead this weekend. Let's have a listen to the Home Secretary.
The Commissioner has clearly stated that the Metropolitan Police's view is that serious public disorder cannot be avoided unless a prohibition under Section 13 is introduced.
So, no protest, but you can have a static get-together, which is just... it's Monty Python territory, isn't it?
It is a bit.
It's kind of, you know, when they tried to stop Jerry Adams' voice being broadcast. It's sort of in that territory, you know, stupid. So you can all get together, but like musical statues, if one of you moves, it's like, oi, sunshine, you're coming with me. I mean, they're still having a protest, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's limited to 2 hours. And apparently they're going to be separated from counter-demonstrators by the River Thames. So they're going to make sure that the other counter-demonstrators are going to be on the other side of the river.
Never go south of the river, mate.
It's clearly, again... sitting on the fence by this government, you know.
Just stop it. Just say, I'm sorry, you know, you stand for something that's horrendous. You support something that is lethal. You are a terror-supporting bunch of half-witted dodgepots. You are not coming out, static or otherwise. Get in the bin. That's what I want to hear, Shabana Mahmood
Well, exactly.
say.
I mean, they're quick to jump on other groups if they don't like what they're doing. And I don't see why not on this. I mean, they've got 2 hours there. But back to this guy, Raza Kazim, trustee of the Islamic Human Rights Commission's charitable funding arm. The Islamic Human Rights Commission, although it says it's different from the charitable funding arm, it's been described by the Prevent strategy as an Islamic group ideologically aligned with the Iranian regime that has a history of extremist links and terrorist sympathies.
Wow.
So
good CV.
Yeah. So isn't it time for the Charities Commission to do something about this funding arm, which is something I looked into before I came on today, and it is actually being investigated by the Charitable Commission.
But a 12-year-old could work this stuff out.
It's been going on for ages.
I mean, I know that sort of it looks like and sounds like a duck and all that sort of stuff, but there's pretty open stuff. They're not even hiding it.
No,
we love a terrorist regime. That's pretty much what they're saying.
And we know what this guy stands for. He says that Khamenei is a great guy and he's 100% behind the regime and everybody else is evil. I mean, either he doesn't know what he's talking about, or he's clearly a man who is in line with the Islamist ideals of the murderous Iranian regime. And his charity that he works for has raised £106,000 gift aid alone. That's come from the records. So we are paying money out of our taxes to go to that charity. So it does need looking at really swiftly.
These sort of terrorist sympathy. We've got one guy who's a former terrorist who's standing at the council elections in Birmingham, of course, in May. These kind of people live among us. Which brings us to this story, Dave. The attack in Michigan was the word I was looking for. The explosive-filled truck, apparently, reportedly driven into the Michigan synagogue before a shooting spree. The FBI has termed the issue as a targeted act of violence against the Jewish community. Here's the Fox News announcement as it happened.
Fox News alert. Sources telling Fox News the truck that the suspect used to ram a Michigan synagogue is registered to a naturalized U.S. citizen, this time from Lebanon.
We now know his name was Ayman Mohammed Ghazali. Every bit of this smacks of a terror attack. It looks as if he was shot by security, but given this thing blew up, it may have been something to do with that. But either way, he's dead. Thankfully, nobody else is. Minor injuries, but it's hard not to deduce, Dave, that this is obviously connected to what is going on in Iran at the moment, and this is just one response. And it brings us back to the kind of, it's not like we haven't had experience of that in this country.
Yes, and it does make you shudder a little bit to think all the people we've admitted in here without documentation over the past few years.
Well, like the last people we were just talking about, who have sympathy with the Iranian
these
regime.
are the ones who are above board.
Yeah, they're the ones that
we know
they
about,
go public on,
and we're doing nothing about.
Correct.
What about the people who? I'm not suggesting that the man we were talking about before is a terrorist, but his sympathies are certainly lying in that direction. And there must be many others in here. We don't know who they are, and where they are, or what they're up to. We just hope and pray that the security services know who these people are and are keeping an eye on them. But I mean, they must be forever stretched. When you think about how many there must be in here.
Well, again, it comes back to that, point that you just made. I mean, some of these people are in plain sight. We've got students at universities mourning the death of the Ayatollah. I mean, straight away, I'd hoover that lot up as well. They'd be in the net. Matey over there organising his protest, he'd be in the net. The fella that was in jail for terrorist offences, who's standing for local councils in May, he'd be hoovered as well. I mean, goodness me. I mean, like you say, these are just the ones we know about.
Well, again, you talk about universities. This is the two-tier system we have in this country here. Nothing is done about these groups. They say it's nothing to do with the university. It's a student group who are saying things in support of Iran. But what happens when somebody stands up flying the Israeli flag? A democratically elected government. The only government which is democratically elected in the Middle East, I think, and they get kicked out of the university or punished in some way
every day of the week.
So they seem to bend over backwards to give fairness and more free speech to the people who hate what we stand for.
Two-tier teaching.
Yeah, absolutely right.
There you go. Dave, we've hit the clock. Always good to see you.
And you.
Dave Wooding with us on the programme. We'll hear from Dave again in the next week or so. Lots to talk about here. Over to you, 03444991000. In terms of what is happening in the world of terrorism, it started, hasn't it? You look at Michigan, it started. I think that's a phrase that will rattle around many people's minds at the moment. How vigilant do we need to be in this country? Let's start with those that are quite open about their terrorist sympathies. And the bigger question, how do we kickstart the UK economy after that flatlining news from the OBR? I mean, absolutely devastating news for this government. And it's not because of Iran. This predates the war in Iran. That's just going to make it even worse. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk 2522. So the British economy stalled in January. A bit of a blow for the government and Rachel Reeves ahead of managing the economic impact of the Iran conflict. But this, of course, very much predates that. Starmer stressed his focus on making the cost of living his priority. He's been saying it forever. What does that even mean now? We'll speak to Conor O'Shea shortly, campaign coordinator for Cost of Living Action. Paul Johnson, firstly, economist, is with us. Afternoon to you, Paul.
Afternoon.
Look, I don't think anybody was expecting figures to come out saying, oh, look, it's 7% growth. I mean, that would have been completely unrealistic. But, hey, it's not as if we haven't experienced those sort of days, sort of, in the distant past. So it was never going to look amazing. But when something flatlines, it's a proper kick in the wrong place for the government, but ultimately for all of us.
Yeah, it's not very good. We've never managed 7% growth or anything quite like it. Certainly had terrible growth over the last 15 years relative to what we expected or what we got used to before. Yeah, I mean, no growth at all in a month. You can overstate the importance of a single month's figures, but the problem, of course, is that the whole of the last couple of quarters of last year were pretty much flat. I mean, 0.1% growth in a quarter is what we were getting. That's pretty pathetic, and I'm afraid this shows the economy starting this year in a pretty weak place. And in a weak place, as you say, we go into more economic turmoil following the war in the Middle East.
Indeed. The usual adage of if you put 10 economists in the room, you will get 20 different answers naturally applies. But is there a sort of a one-size-fits-all kind of agreed area in those big heady economic WhatsApp groups I'm sure you're a member of? Is there a sort of like, why are they not doing this? Is that line out there? Is there one thing that obviously and objectively would begin to settle or at least start the journey of improvement?
I mean, there are quite a few things. I think the thing that most of us agree on, which is politically difficult, is that you can, as a government, make a difference to growth, but it's actually really hard to do that quickly. And I think this is where there's a conflict between the politics, which means you need to get things happening immediately, you need to get it done within a parliament, and the economics, which says the thing that makes a difference is things like reforming planning policy or the tax system, or building infrastructure or what have you, which tend to have, or competition regime, which tend to have impacts over 5, 10, 20 years. So I'm an optimist about what government can do if it gets those things right, but I'm an optimist about the medium and long term. I think often when governments try to move things quickly, what they actually end up doing is stoking inflation. And what this government is doing, some of it is sensible. I mean, they are making efforts at reforming planning. Some of it is much less sensible. I mean, they've made it much more expensive to employ people. They've made they've increased regulation and taxes in the housing market, and they've made the tax system less growth friendly. So I mean, I think we're all agreed on what they've done right and what they've done wrong.
In terms of what other countries are doing in this respect, Paul, I know that, you know, if you listen to a Donald Trump speech, for example, I mean, everything is absolutely fantastic. There's goals being achieved all round, record amounts of investment, record amounts of wage rises, record amounts of growth. I mean, the list goes on. Look, I know Trump, you know, that is his thing. He puts a shiny light on it, and that maybe is useful in certain times. But globally, generally speaking, look at the G7 and other similar economies. Are they all experiencing this, or are we in a particularly bad place in comparison?
Well, America, has been doing much better than other big economies over the last several years for all sorts of different reasons. I mean, not least driven by their incredible success in tech industries and AI and all of that kind of thing. But actually, we are doing rather worse than most of the other big economies. Germany's been struggling recently, but actually, I mean, Italy's been doing surprisingly well, and we've been doing less well than places like France and Canada as well. I mean, not dramatically less, but we have been doing less well. But it's interesting what you were saying about sort of Trump's optimism, because I think one of the things that's holding our economy back is a general lack of optimism. I mean, there's real potential here in a sense that's quite unusual, which is that both households and companies have been saving a lot of money over the last few years. And at the point at which they start to grow more confident, there's actually money out there ready to be spent. It's just people aren't feeling much like spending it because they're so uncertain, I think, about what the future holds.
Indeed. Paul, great to have you on. Thank you for your time. Paul Johnson, the economist, with us on the programme. Let's get a word from Conor O'Shea, campaign coordinator for Cost of Living Action. I sometimes think, Conor, that it might have been Ed Miliband, I'm not sure, but years ago, who first talked about the cost of living crisis. We almost gave inevitable elements of life a name, and giving it a name gave it almost a new terms to discuss it. It doesn't mean, of course, it doesn't exist, because we know it exists, and we know there are people in horrendous situations because of it. But it has become something we talk about perhaps more than we ever used to.
Well, good afternoon, Ian, and good afternoon, viewers. What I would say to that is that the cost of living, no matter who came up with the term, no matter how long ago it was, and whatever you sort of want to call it, is the defining issue of our times. Yeah. If you want to think of it as living standards or cost of living, whatever it is, people across the country are really struggling with the basics. This is not just the people at the very lowest rung of the income ladder. It's not just people who are reliant upon Social Security. It's people who think, you know, that they're doing slightly better in life, or they feel they should be doing slightly better in life than their payslip has allowed them to do. Yeah. It's a really crushingly brutal situation for so many people across the country. And unfortunately, it does look like it's about to get a bit worse.
It does. We were saying in the office, you know, I've got a job that pays me a nice wage, and that's fabulous. But you notice, even no matter where you are on that spectrum, you suddenly look at your bank balance and you think, no, that's wrong. That can't be right. And all you've done, you haven't gone on holiday, you haven't bought a new wardrobe of clothes, you haven't splashed out on a new car. All you've done is been living, buying food, filling up the car with petrol, doing normal stuff. But suddenly it hits you and you think, wow. So if somebody in my position is, experiencing that and seeing it with your own eyes, you have to consider what others who were already struggling are experiencing, because all the stuff you've got to buy isn't any cheaper for them to buy. They've got less income to do it with. You still got to fill your car up with petrol. You still got to buy food to eat.
Well, that's exactly what we're working on at Cost of Living Action here. I've got a few statistics from some polling we did the other week.
Yeah, fire away.
Which ends up with saying that 40% of people have less than 25 quid a week after the essentials, which is a shocking amount of money and a shocking amount of people. That's 40% of people in this country who are struggling that much because the cost of the essentials are so brutal and the income is not matching it. This is a really, really difficult situation for so many people across the country. It's the defining issue of our times, both politically and socially. And something has to be done about this in the round. We have to talk about this issue in the whole.
Yeah.
But I'm really hoping that the government starts to listen to this as the next crisis comes through.
Well, as we were saying to our previous guest, one of the problems, I guess, Connor, is that everyone has their own idea of what this should look like. So somebody on the centre-right of politics would say, look, we've got various government departments where the budgets are off the scale, whether it's welfare, whether it's how we spend on NHS, not that we shouldn't spend on NHS, but how we spend it. All of these areas, they need an absolute root and branch reform, and then that would release money to go into perhaps better areas or more stimulation in terms of creating jobs. There isn't a one-size-fits-all answer to this, is there? But are there some basic pointers that you guys look at and say, well, if the government did this, we might be in a slightly better place?
Yeah, so there's lots of those sort of things that we advocate for across a number of areas. We've identified that the 5 key drivers of the cost of living crisis include energy, housing, wages and income, social security and taxes. And there needs to be reform across all of those things in order for the cost of living crisis to be truly abated. But what I'd like to raise here is something that I think we can all agree upon, that's been spoken about by senior members of the government over the last few days. The Chancellor, the Prime Minister, Ed Miliband, have all said that they will not take, and I'm going to quote the Chancellor here, that she won't tolerate any company exploiting the current crisis to make excess profits at consumers' expense. And the notion that we might be having a price shock coming down the line as a result of what's happening in Iran.
Yeah.
What we need to see is protections for people so that their bills don't go through the roof as a result of excess profiteering, which may or may not be coming.
The chances are, based on the last set of figures we've seen for the economy, Connor, that the next set, and perhaps the one or two after that, aren't going to look much better.
It doesn't appear so, and that's why, as I keep saying, with cost of living as the defining issue of our times, the government's got to step in and they've got to take on a suite of measures that protect people against rising bills, help to bolster their incomes, and make sure that ultimately this crisis doesn't get worse. It's so long-term and deep-seated what people are feeling.
Yeah.
I'm sure that as we listen to what's happening in the news in Iran, there's echoes of 2022 and the energy crisis we saw then.
Sure.
And for a lot of people, that's something that happened in 2022 and then perhaps doesn't get the same airtime over the course of the last 4 years, and now it's come back again. But ultimately, what we've seen is that people have been struggling for a very long time throughout all of this, with those figures that I've just laid off, on how much money people have left at the end of the week or the end of the month. And we've been in this for so long that we need proper, strong structural solutions to this cost of living crisis.
Indeed. Connor, thank you for your time. Really appreciate that. Have a great weekend. Connor O'Shea, Campaign Coordinator for Cost of Living Action. What does that look like to you as well, in terms of the kind of stuff that you don't do anymore or you've had to cut back on? There's lots of different creative ways you can cut back on stuff, and it largely depends on what you've got to begin with. There's obvious examples. The one, commuters like myself, you tend to buy a coffee at the, Costa or Nero when you're waiting for your train. So stuff like that, all right? Now, if you've got hardly anything to start with, you're probably not one of those queuing up for the coffee. But not everybody queuing up for a coffee is someone who's loaded financially. But there's all those little things you can do. But then there's the more substantial stuff. You know, I reckon people who used to have 3 holidays a year probably don't do that anymore. I mean, here's a good example. Danny says, cost-cutting. Families are now burying their dead on the cheap. No service, no funeral, you just get the ashes. Apparently that's up 70%. I mean, the cost of a funeral is a bit ridiculous. We once did a phone-in on whether or not it's possible, because people were talking about the way that they used to bury their dead. You know, you could be mummified back in the day, and I quite liked the idea of being mummified. But maybe just with my face showing through the bandages. And then I moved on to taxidermy, because you can't do that with humans, can you? I wouldn't mind being stuffed. I mean, what? Never say that when your producer's about to take a swig of water, which we just did. Why is that not allowed? You can have your dog stuffed. You can have your cat stuffed. You can have an old ferret stuffed and stick it on your mantelpiece. But well, I did mention the mummified thing. You could do the mummified thing, but the taxidermy for humans, why is that not allowed? Why can you not? Why can you not do that? Because then I could just stand in the hallway of my kid's house forever and freak them out for the rest of their life. Love it. 0344 499 1000. How do we kickstart the UK economy? Serious question. And in concurrent with that, what are the areas that you've noticed, those real pinch points and things you've had to cut back on? Our lines are open. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Me says, the one thing I can't afford anymore is beef. Ridiculous price, to be honest, says John in Blackpool. Yeah, once you get on to me, lamb. I tell you, there, I'll raise you a lamb on that. I do know I bought a couple of fillet steaks. It's about 2 months ago. And I really couldn't believe how expensive they were. It's just supermarket. I mean, it wasn't like at a butcher's where you'd arguably paid a bit more. But lamb, and also if you buy lamb chops, lamb is a beautiful meat, but you don't get very much on a lamb chop, do you? You feel like you've got to have about 6 of them to get your money's worth. But they'll cost a few quid. Gaynor says, great show. Reference growth. The only thing that's growing is Starmer's nose. Pinocchio, the toolmaker's son, says Gaynor in Nottinghamshire. This is Kevin in Swansea. On the cost of living, Kev, what have you got for us? Afternoon.
Afternoon, Ian. The thing is that, like, last year, I'm a pensioner, obviously, and I used to go for a meal at the pub round the corner.
Yep.
About 2 to 3 times a month. I haven't been there for months now because I just can't afford it.
Isn't that so? So that's not like it's gone up by 20p, is it? I mean, things have gone up more than that for you to say I just can't go anymore.
Well, it's gone up like a meal you could get for 8 or 9 quid is now like 13, 14 pound, and it's just out of my reach at the moment.
Can't you go once a month instead of once a week?
Yeah, well. I've got £7 in the bank at the moment till I get my next payment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a great example of what the previous guy was talking about, the amount of disposable income that is left. I mean, if it's literally not there, there is nothing you can do, right? I mean, you can't go, I'll just go and buy myself, a kebab and chips and a can of Coke or something.
Yeah. But, we've got a great market in Swansea, and it's not going down there, but, fresh meat, it's beautiful meat, great. But I ain't been down there for, you're going
to pay for it, aren't you?
Yeah. And regarding the benefits, the point is that while we've got illegal people coming into this country being given all the benefits, I mean, they can see a dentist, a doctor when they arrive. I haven't seen a doctor for 10 years. A dentist for 10 years.
Yeah.
And the last time I went to one, he said, Kevin, you've got a couple of teeth missing. I said, yeah, I pulled them out myself. He said, don't do that. I said, I've got no choice. I can't afford 180 quid.
Yeah.
So I pulled them out myself.
I think there's a lot of people in that position as well, particularly with dentistry. Yeah. And if you're not, if you're not about to get some horrendous gum disease, then I think a lot of people opt to do that, don't they?
Yeah. Well,
and also do their own fillings as well. That's the thing.
Well, I don't know what I feel.
I think you can genuinely, I'm not encouraging this, but I think you can go on Amazon and buy stuff to fill your teeth. I'm sure you can. Is that right, Finn? Finn's our dental expert. He'll check that out for us. He knows stuff.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm not tech savvy.
No, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm not advising you do it, but I think it's sold as a temporary solution in case something, in case something happens over the weekend and you can't get to a dentist. But like you say, even if you can get to a dentist, Kevin, how many people can afford dentists?
Yeah, that's
that
it.
number has increased, clearly.
Then you've got to find one.
You've got to find one, and then you've got to be able to pay for one. Kevin, thank you very much indeed for that. Nice to speak. Michael is in Hertfordshire. On the government, wasting money, cost of living, economy in the swamp. Michael, what are you thinking?
Good afternoon, how are you?
Good as gold at this end.
Do you want a list?
Go on, give us. I love a list.
Foreign students. They owe billions to loans.
Yep.
How can we let that happen? If a government or a country wants their students to come here, they should guarantee if it's not paid. Wouldn't that be simple?
Well, you'd think so.
They got rid of the child cap. Do you think the children are honestly going to get any extra money from people that have so many children? Some do, but I bet the majority won't.
Yep.
When it's better to be unemployed than working, or you're better off, how can that be? What are people going to do?
Yeah.
The list goes on, and God forbid we give away the Chagos Islands, that's another 30 billion that's going down.
Every time somebody comes up with an example like you've just done, Michael, if there was a government minister here, they would say, they normally go, well, it sounds like a lot of money, but actually in the grander scale, it's not a lot of money. But hang on, I reckon if we sat here for the next few hours, I reckon we could come up with 100 things.
Absolutely.
Like you've just given, of things that are massive waste of money. So individually, yeah, you're not going to run the NHS on what you'd save on students paying their way. Put it all together, surely, by any measure, that would come to a sizable chunk of cash.
Listen, no government is perfect, and no government can do the impossible. We're not stupid. They cannot keep everyone happy.
Yeah.
But when you have a working class country where the working class is shrinking and the unemployed is going up, there's only one answer. If it was a private business, England would have gone bankrupt years ago.
Yeah. It's a good point. Michael, thank you for that. Good luck with everything. Appreciate your call. Michael in Hertfordshire. Karen in Chester says, last year we went on holiday to Japan. The year before we went to Iceland. This year looks like we'll be camping in Devon. Not that there's anything wrong with camping or Devon, says Karen. Yeah, it's a good point, but it does highlight that. The amount of holiday costs. I know we've all got our little areas that we'll moan about. I mean, we're talking about important things like, dentistry. So holidays sound quite luxurious compared to that, but it is the 21st century. Shouldn't be controversial to go on holiday. The El Cheapo choice for a holiday used to be, Spain, wasn't it? Southern Spain. I tell you now, if you wanted to go to a reasonable hotel during the summer holiday, so kids are off, and you wanted to spend a week in Spain, you'd probably get no change out of about £8,000. I'm not kidding you, for 4 of you. Peak time, school holidays, flights, accommodation. It is off the scale. You know the biggest mystery about that? They're probably nearly all booked up already. Don't even ask how. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Afternoon, we shoehorn into the weekend with a plethora of hot, savoury, debatable delights at this end. Britain's economy, of course, top of the list here, flatlining in January. This is a big old blow to Rachel Reeves and the Labour government. They're talking about the fallout from Iran. Right, ignore that. This predates what was happening in Iran. The next set of figures may well incorporate some of that, and they're likely to get even worse. How do we turn it around? How do we kickstart the UK economy? What does this government need to start doing that it's not doing already? I mean, you'd like to think that no government, even if it's one you didn't vote for and pathologically hate, no government sits there and says, oh, how can we kill the economy? They all think they've got the magic formula to make things better. Sadly, this lot are out of road, it seems. More on that and your comments as well. 0344 499 1000. Also, as we discussed in the last section, a trustee of the charitable arm of that group behind the banned Al-Quds Day March yelled death to the IDF and said that Iran's late leader makes us proud. Who the hell are these people thinking? And why are they out in public as well? That was last weekend's demonstration. They were hoping to do something similar this weekend, but they've told you can't protest. You can have a 2-hour static moment. Right. That's like a protest, really? And 50 Labour councillors, 50 Labour councillors have defected to the Greens within the past 6 months ahead of the May 7th local elections. I'd love to know what was the point that stimulated them. I can understand when they thought, oh, Keir Starmer, bit rubbish, not for us anymore. Let's go for Zach Polanski. Yeah, because he's great, isn't he? Was it that or something else? Details to come. All the breaking news, everything you need to know right here on Talk. 0344 499 1000. We'll come back to more of your comments and calls in a second. Just want to quickly read this from Daryl in Lincoln. Cost of living crisis. I'm a long-distance lorry driver, so I'm on a decent wage. I live alone, mortgage, etc. My energy bills are low because I'm usually out for most of the week. The last time I went on holiday, I went to Morocco on my motorcycle, but haven't been able to do any long adventure holidays for the last 3 years. I used to go every year. I'm saving up, hopefully this year or next year. And that's fascinating. Daryl, thank you for that, mate, because that's somebody... So he's on his own. He's got a good income. He can manage his bills. His bills are low, partly because he's away from home and flying solo. And you still see the struggle. You still see, wow, I used to be able to do that. Can't do that anymore. I didn't, you know, it just kind of creeps up on you. Sort of organic process. And when you realise the bank balance isn't quite as tickety-boo as it used to be. 0344 499 1000. We talked a lot this week, of course, about Peter Mandelson, and we talked about that release of documents that came on, was it Wednesday, wasn't it? And I made the point at the time, I thought, that's interesting, isn't it? Because bearing in mind this Morgan McSweeney character, former head honcho over there at Downing Street with Keir Starmer, doesn't seem to be mentioned in this. And I thought, well, maybe I'm the journalist that didn't go through all of it. I'm sure he's there somewhere, which gave me some comfort when I read Dan Hodges' column in the Mail on this very point. He's with us now. Afternoon to you, Dan.
Afternoon.
Nice to see you. So there I am, Control F, writing Morgan, McSweeney, God knows what else. I'm thinking this bloke's going to come up at some point. He's all over this story. Nowhere to be seen. What's going on?
Yeah, and as I say today, it's the dog that didn't bark in the document release. And, you know, you were absolutely right to point that out. I mean, as we literally learnt today, staggeringly, Keir Starmer, according to Keir Starmer's own account or Downing Street's account, had no conversation at all with Peter Mandelson before appointing Peter Mandelson as ambassador, and effectively subcontracted the whole appointment process to two senior aides, one of whom is Morgan McSweeney, the other whom is Matthew Doyle. Both men who, it has to be said, are self-confessed close friends of Peter Mandelson, and they were in charge of the process. And now, neither of them, there is a reference in one document to Matthew Doyle, although it's not Matthew Doyle's own document, it's a government civil servant's document, in which he spoke to Doyle, and Doyle confirmed he'd had numerous conversations with McSweeney about Mandelson's appointment. But there is no record, there's nothing in writing from McSweeney, there's nothing in writing from Doyle. And, you know, as I say today, there's a very clear reason for that, is because we are now in the midst of a cover-up in relation to this. Yeah. It's quite clear the documents that were released on Wednesday were chosen selectively, and that other major communication within Downing Street has not been released, and it's not entirely clear when it will be released, if ever.
One of the other problems, it seems to me, and you touch on this as well in your column, is that, and this is likely to become the overarching camouflage for the government, is that it seems much of these conversations didn't happen on official government channels. They happened on private emails and WhatsApp groups. Now, I don't know what the legality of that is, but what it does mean is that there's no paper trail, essentially.
Well, exactly. And I think this is going to come to the heart of this whole issue and the heart of the cover-up, if you like. It is quite clear that a number of the significant communications were not done on, via official government channels, by personal channels. Now, there are two issues that arise by this. Under the regulations, people are allowed to an extent, use personal communications devices, though not for obviously highly secretive or secretive or top secret or sensitive government communication. But when they do that, a record is meant to be kept of that communication, and broadly, not verbatim, but broadly what the nature of the communication was. Now, we know for a fact that, if you like, at the start of this crisis, just before Mandelson actually took up his position, Lord Glassman, senior Labour peer, had attended the Trump inauguration in the United States and produced a report, apparently at the request of McSweeney, to give feedback on what the mood was within Washington and the Washington community about Mandelson's appointment and other issues and perceptions of Starmer. He produced that report, sent it back, and in that report specifically said, do not appoint Peter Mandelson. It's a mistake. I've been getting a very negative reaction to his appointment here. The Tories put in a request at the start of, I think it was back end of last week, start of this week, what happened to that document, who saw it, what action was taken. And the Cabinet Office said they've got no record of it.
Yes.
And the reason they've got no record of it, I mean, I actually spoke myself to Lord Glassman, was he said the document was sent to Morgan McSweeney and another Downing Street official on their personal emails. So it's quite clear what's going to happen. The government is literally going to say, we have no record of communication X and communication Y, because technically it's not included on the main central government servers. So that is a huge part of the Mandelson appointment story, and a huge part of the information that is going to be withheld from Parliament and the public and the press.
Indeed. And these are crucial. I mean, Maurice Glassman is a widely cross-party respected figure as well. This isn't some sort of gossip monger that went to Capitol Hill and came back with a bit of tittle-tattle. This is an informed academic brain that is worth listening to on a matter of this seriousness. But the idea that his advice would just be lost... Can somebody not be subpoenaed to produce it, or would there just be denial if they tried?
This comes back to another problem, which is, again, it's a grey area. But my understanding, as I said, is for serving government employees in relation to their private communications, they are required to provide them on request. But obviously, here's the other element of this. Just entirely coincidentally, both Morgan McSweeney and Matthew Doyle, the two people at the centre of this, have very conveniently left government. Now, my understanding is there is no sort of formal government mechanism for forcing them to provide private communications once they've left government. Now, there is potentially a process that we could go through where Parliament could demand their publication, because obviously the only reason we get in these documents is because a parliamentary motion was passed demanding them. They could be asked by Parliament to provide them, and then if they didn't provide them, then would be in contempt of Parliament.
Yeah.
But then Parliament doesn't have any special sanction.
True.
Parliament can't lock people up. So unless we get we need clarity from the government on this. Very simple one: are they going to publish in their entirety private communications relating to Mandelson's appointment? We don't need any gossip or anything. We don't want people's dinner plans. What we do need are what conversations was McSweeney having with Doyle, Starmer, and others via his private WhatsApp and via his private emails.
Yeah, and that I would have thought would be. You'd like to think if there was nothing to see here, then those individuals would volunteer that information. But one is forced to, by definition, conclude that that there could well be conversations that took place that they don't want anybody to hear. And I have to say, Dan, I find it interesting that Keir Starmer himself. I know when you're the Prime Minister, you don't interview everyone. You don't, you're not going to interview the person that becomes the receptionist at the Ministry of Defence or something like that. I understand that. But ambassador to the United States, I would have thought would be something that a Prime Minister might want to meet with the potential candidate. Would that be too much to ask?
Absolutely. I mean, I find that staggering. But look, let's be clear about the process. Keir Starmer said on September the 10th, when he was first questioned about this at Prime Minister's Questions by Kemi Badenoch, he specifically said Peter Mandelson had gone through, a very vigorous vetting process, and crucially said in the same way that all ambassadors do. Now, that statement to the House of Commons was a barefaced lie, and we know it's a barefaced lie. It wasn't the normal process that was gone through, specifically because Peter Mandelson was a political appointment and did not come up through the Foreign Office chain in the normal way. So in effect, Starmer was setting up his own vetting process for this. And as we know, as part of that process, he was warned about Mandelson in relationship to Epstein, but chose to ignore it. And also there is another crucial element of this, which is the other excuse we're getting from the government at the moment is, we can't release some of these documents because they're pertinent to the Met Police investigation in Mandelson. But this is the thing. We were told that Starmer and others, that the Epstein issue was not a major issue at the time that they appointed Starmer. The time they appointed Mandelson. There were a couple of queries. They asked him a couple of questions. He satisfied them. Everyone moved on. All of a sudden, we're being told, actually, no. There's this whole raft of communications specifically about Mandelson and his relationship with Epstein that were went to the very heart of the appointment process, but we can't see them because the Met Police won't let us see them because they're so germane to the Met's investigation. They can't have it both ways.
Well, indeed. And surely that information does exist. It's not as if only the Met have it. And didn't Lindsay Hoyle say, I'm sorry, that the Met do not have the right to usurp the needs, or, I'm paraphrasing here, the needs or requirements of Parliament?
Exactly. This is the key thing. If the documents that are being withheld, because they are so pertinent to the police investigation, they're so pertinent that they would prejudice the investigation, then the only rationale is they contain very clear, damning evidence about the scale and nature of Mandelson's relationship with Epstein. So if they're so pertinent to the investigation, and the evidence is so clear and so damning that it can't be placed in the public domain, why was it not sufficient for Keir Starmer to say, well, hang on a second, quite clearly he's got a relationship here with Epstein, had an ongoing relationship with Epstein, and we can't go ahead with the appointment.
Indeed. Final point, Dan. We started at the beginning by talking about these private WhatsApp and private email conversations, which may well be where the bulk of the evidence lies, and it sounds as if we'll never get to know that. This is the classic excuse that Starmer will be able to use, isn't it? And, they will talk about, well, going forward, we'll learn lessons from this, and, this can never happen again. And it gives, essentially, Mr Starmer a way out of this. He can claim forevermore that the information is simply not available.
He'll certainly try to. I mean, my personal view is there is no way out of this for Keir Starmer. I think it's so damaging, and even the documents that the selected documents that they have chosen to disclose, They have themselves have proven to be damning enough. Now they would literally have to turn around and say, we're not publishing anything else, moving forward, and that's not politically sustainable.
So you think he's going to be? This could finish Starmer off?
Yeah, I mean, look, Starmer's finished anyway. I mean, he's finished politically. I mean, Gorton and Denton, that was, God knows how many times I've said it's the final nail. There are more nails in his coffin than wood now. But yes, I mean, there's no way. I mean, we've seen today, just in the last, half an hour. I think someone's published a photo from the Epstein files, the first photo of Mandelson with Andrew and with Epstein. This is just going to carry on. This is something that's going to go on, not just for weeks, not just for months, for years. It's very likely we'll have criminal prosecutions as a result of this. And every time the name Peter Mandelson appears, it will be associated with Keir Starmer now. He is now fused with Mandelson's in the public's minds and the political mind. So there's no way out from this.
Interesting. Dan, great to have you on. Let's speak again on this. I know you're right across it. It'd be good to catch up in a week or so to see where it's gone next. Dan Hodges, commentator. He's with the Mail, of course. Really interesting column about those private WhatsApp emails and other forms of text-based communication that wasn't officially through the government channels. Therefore, the government go, well, we haven't got that information. And the Lord Glassman advice, I mean, that is utterly mysterious that hasn't manifest, where there was an explicit warning from Maurice Glassman to not hire this guy. And he tested the water over there in Washington on that one. 0344 499 1000. It's never going to be dull when the name Peter Mandelson is in the debate. We'll take some comments on that as well. We'll look at Green Party. Well, the Green Party chief recipients of over 50 Labour politicians in the last few months. We'll get details on that coming next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
So here's a story. Ahead of May 7th local elections, apparently 50 Labour councillors have defected to the Green Party in the last 6 months. Zach Polanski's party now receiving 2 to 3 inquiries a week, apparently from local Labour politicians, considering a similar move. Will Zach take all of the runt of the Labour Party, though?
And here we see the most catastrophic lapse in judgment you can imagine. I think it's clear the Prime Minister should do the right thing and step down, because actually the rut runs right throughout the Labour government.
Yeah, I think rot was what he was saying there, as opposed to rut or rump. Let's speak with Ashok Kumar, Green Party activist, Associate Professor, Birkbeck University. Here's the thing, Ashok, right? OK, I had no idea you were a Green Party activist. You used to be, you know, you had views that I wouldn't necessarily agree with, but I never thought you were a nut job. So what the heck's happening? What's happened to you, man? I mean, if your grandparents could see you now, they'd go, what happened to young Ashok? He was a sensible guy, heading for a world of academia and lecturing, and now he's representing the Green Party. He's turned into a mad Marxist. Good afternoon, by the way.
Afternoon, Ian. Well, I guess maybe 20% plus are mad Marxists who are now supporting the Green Party. I mean, in the recent polls, we came second to reform, you know, so... you know, there needs to be an electoral option in this country. I supported Jeremy Corbyn 10 years ago, and the Labour Party obviously is completely lobotomized now. They don't stand for anything, and they just stand for the power structure. America, you want us to go to war? They use some rhetorical sort of bait and switch and say, oh, we're not supporting the war, we're only supporting defensive. They're supporting the war. Oh, austerity, well, we have to do it because of growth. Call it what you want. You're supporting austerity. They've supported austerity. They've abandoned all his pledges. He doesn't stand for anything, and he's detestable. I mean, the Mandelson case is just representative of the rot that is like at the root of Labour Party. It's unreformable, and so people are coming to the Greens in droves. You know, 6 months ago we had 60,000 members. Now we're upwards of 220,000 members. Who knows? Every day there's thousands joining.
What I don't get, Ash, look, it's you know, we're not North Korea, so people can vote for who they want and support who they want, and that's the lovely thing. I've always said this. I love the fact that when Jeremy Corbyn was standing, I thought it was a fantastic example of democracy.
You were much more sympathetic to Jeremy Corbyn, and then for some reason, talkTV transformed your politics within years. You became so anti. I used to come on Ian.
I was always always in favour of him being able to exist. I wasn't suggesting he didn't exist.
Yeah, you didn't want to kill him.
We exterminate him or anything. No,
I liked how magnanimous of you.
Absolutely, isn't that decent of me? No, but the point is that you know our political structure, our spectrum rather, should be a great choice. And you know when we see those silly names like Monster Raving Loony Party and the Is Elvis Alive Party, it might be a bit daft, but you know so what? It's a democracy. It's great. However, the Green Party, you've got this Zach Polanski character. I mean, what the hell is going on there? Is he out of central casting? He has no charisma. He's got very little policies apart from criminalising landlords and legalising drugs. That seems to be it. I mean, get a new leader, Ashok. You do it better.
Well, look, charisma is really subjective. You might think he doesn't have charisma, but the hundreds of thousands, quite literally, of people who've joined the Greens, the people of Gorton and Denton, a seat nobody expected us to win, and you know it's 150 on our target list. And people, the May elections, if you look at the recent polls, Labour support in big cities like London and others is collapsing, and they're going directly to the Greens. So you might think that he has no charisma. Maybe charisma doesn't matter. I personally think he has plenty of charisma, because what is charisma? Yeah, he might not be slick Willy like Bill Clinton. He might not be smooth talking like Blair, but he stands up for what he believes, and he defends what he believes, and he doesn't kowtow to which way the wind's blowing. Yeah. And people respect that. You might not think he's a smooth operator or used car salesman like charisma, but what he has is authenticity. And that's what people are crying out for. They don't want another person shucking and jiving, a charlatan, someone who says something and does another thing like Starmer does. He's hated. He's reviled. You know, he ticked all the right boxes in terms of charisma. I mean, I don't know. I don't see it. But that's not what people are crying out for right now. They want someone real, and that's what they're getting with Zach Polansky.
What I think is interesting, Ashok, and this is a wider point about politics and how we digest it and where we plant our flags of allegiance, etc. And I don't know, you know, maybe it's always been like this. I'm just a young buck, not long out my teens, as you can tell. But in my lifetime, I've never quite seen politics function in a kind of almost a sporting way, where you plant your colours. Whether it's Nigel Farage over there, Zach Polansky over there, I think the Brexit vote happened largely, whether you were Remain or Leave, on an emotional thing, as distinct from, you know, I doubt many Brexiteers sat and read up on trade agreements and the finer points and the bullet point list of transactional policy on engineering, metals or anything else. And similarly, I doubt whether many Leavers, many Remainers looked at the cost balance of Remain or Leave and all the other details that would also go with that argument. People voted on what they kind of felt was the right thing. And now you have Nigel Farage doing really well in the polls because people feel that need for change, and the Green Party are hoovering up, but on a similar basis. This is not philosophically led politics, is it? This is about a feeling. Like you might support Chelsea, you might support Zach Polansky.
I think it's the opposite of that, actually. Like, I don't really remember the 90s very well, but the 90s, the 2000s, that was about which color you wanted, right? We're going to vote for the blue team. We're going to vote for the red team. And you could separate them basically with the cigarette paper. There was very little distinction. You look at 2010 to now, and then you look at 2022 to now, there's very little distinction between what the Tories did, which was austerity and kowtowing to the American interests, and what Starmer's doing. That's red team, blue team nonsense. And people are sort of abandoning that because people's cost of living is crunching. People are seeing us murder people and or provide arms for a genocide live fed into our television and into our phones for 2 years. People are voting on an emotional basis, but that doesn't disarticulate it from something people care about. People are abandoning the parties like the Tories and the Labour Party, which they voted for generations, precisely because the power structure and the parties that be have abandoned their interests. And the reform is, I believe, and that is going to people's basest interests. They're saying, oh, this group of people, they're taking the jobs from you, and we're going to continue to, not tax the rich or distribute wealth. And what the Green Party is saying is, we believe that it's not immigrants that are the problem. It's that there's a power structure, a ruling class, a group of wealthy people in our society that have accumulated an enormous amount of wealth. We want to take a bit of that and distribute it to the people that produce value in society, workers and others. And so that's really speaking to that. The reason people are abandoning the center is because the center hasn't provided them anything. The Tories haven't provided them a better life. The Labour Party hasn't provided them a better life. And that's why they're going towards parties that are offering something dramatically different.
Just a final word on Hannah Spencer, the new Green Party MP. I think, and hear me out on this, Ashok, I think it's outrageous that this woman is even in Parliament. I think it's a disgrace that she stood for office. I think it's an outrage that she's seen speaking publicly on the Green benches, not because she's a lefty, but because this country is short of flipping plumbers. We can't afford to lose one. And in the world of diversity, we certainly can't afford to lose a female plumber. What do you say?
100%. Well, look, I think I don't disagree with you. I mean, I think the Green Party, I don't know what the specific policy around getting more women into plumbing is, but there definitely needs to be some kind of policy, not DEI, but a policy to encourage, more women and more, historically marginalized people.
There's one less plumber in her constituency now. I mean, people are crying out for flipping. Everybody needs a plumber.
Well, you should write her a letter.
I think I will.
She do both plumbing and be an MP.
Yeah, maybe you can. Yeah, maybe there is a way of mixing it up. Ashok, great to speak. Thank you, sir. Ashok Kumar, Green Party activist. He is, of course, also associate professor at Birkbeck University, a man whose politics I have zero in common with. However, I'm liking the battle between, in some respects, the battle between the Greens and potentially the battle between Greens and Reform. You know, are we going to be removing the Tories completely out of this, the Labour Party completely out of this? I'm not quite buying into there's something about. I know Reform are a new party, but they've been at it for a long time in trying to get to this stage. Now, the Green Party have been around, but I don't think they've ever mobilised themselves in the way that the Reform Party have been forced to do and wanted to do. And I know they, previous Brexit Party and now Reform. This has been a massively long, hard-working, very expensive journey for the likes of Nigel Farage, Richard Tice and co. And anyone involved in that project. It's been a long time in the making. Whereas the Green Party have sort of suddenly, literally out of nowhere, have found themselves sort of second in the opinion polls. And I just think, really? And it goes back to the point I made about how people vote for things. Did suddenly loads of people go, the Green Party, I've just had a read-up on the philosophical finer points of Marxism and everything they stand for, and I think they're rather good. I find it odd that the Muslim community would be endorsing a party that are pretty laissez-faire about decriminalising drugs. I think that's bizarre. Their stance on LGBTQRST, UVW, X, that they have huge views on that, which I don't imagine would sit very well in your local mosque. 0344 499 1000. Thoughts on that? This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. 0344 499 1000. 25 to 3. Now, Defence Secretary John Healey has accused Vladimir Putin of orchestrating recent Iranian drone strikes on a coalition airbase in Iraq. The attacks, reportedly targeting British and Allied troops, involved a drone swarm Wednesday night. Let's hear from the Defence Secretary himself.
We've seen this established growing axis of aggression, haven't we, between Russia and Iran. We've seen the way that Russia has fired nearly 60,000 Iranian-style drones into Ukraine. And we see from Iran some of the same tactics we see from Russia in Iran. And so those links between two countries that menace their neighbours, that pose a threat more widely to us all, are part and parcel of what we're dealing with, what our forces out in the region are dealing with.
Let's get a word on this from Keir Giles, senior fellow at Chatham House, also author of Who Will Defend Europe, which is a good question to ask on any day of the week, frankly. But certainly at the moment. Keir, good afternoon to you. Nice to have you with us. I mean, bringing Putin into this, I mean, obviously you could have probably gone to a bookmaker's and got a good return on a bet to suggest that Putin's fingerprints might be somewhere in this, in the melee of this war. A defence secretary, a British defence secretary, raising that issue publicly, talking about it. How much of a game changer is that in this current affair in the Middle East?
It shouldn't be a game changer for anybody that's been paying attention. We've known for a long time that this is a global conflict of which the front line has been in Ukraine, but it's between coalitions that are global. Those that are backing Russia, those that are backing Ukraine, and it shouldn't be any surprise that Russia sees an opportunity here to reach out and harm the people it doesn't like, including the UK. Now, what Healy has said there is less specific than we've heard about Russia supplying intelligence to assist Iran in targeting American personnel and facilities, which the Americans, of course, have brushed off because Putin, in their eyes, can do no wrong. Instead, it's just talking about the tactics that seem to be emulated for delivering these drones against targets, copying what Russia has used against Ukraine.
And in usual form, I would imagine, Keir, that Mr. Putin won't be losing any sleep at the idea that he's being publicly named as being part of this.
I very much doubt it. It may have been a bit of a gamble supporting Iran against the United States at a time when you might have thought that Russia would not want to upset the US, when the US seems to be so accommodating of everything that Russia would like to do. But if it's a gamble, it's one that seems to have paid off.
And on that point, the wider point of Russia's inclusion, is this sort of tacit endorsement of one side with a little bit of help, or is it likely to go further?
I expect it will probably go further. There's been a lot of talk about the extent to which Russia is inconvenienced by the fact that Iran is now being pummeled. But of course, that Iranian technology had already been transferred to Russia, and Russia had picked it up and built it out at scales which were unimaginable just a couple of years ago, and of course developed the tactics, the electronic warfare suppression, the navigation, everything that they needed to engage in this technological race with Ukraine. So let's not be surprised if that starts feeding back even more visibly to Iran, including potentially deliveries of drones back to Iran from the Russian production facilities.
I'm bound to ask about China in that case as a natural follow-on question there. What are your thoughts there?
Well, China, of course, is part of that same coalition that has been following this shared interest of attacking the rules-based international order, even if they have their own particular strategic objectives, even if that varies. It would be surprising if the hand of China behind some of this were so overt. But, of course, China has the luxury, both with this conflict and with Russia's war on Ukraine, of sitting back, watching how this plays out, making sure that they get the maximum advantage from it, and then picking up the pieces afterwards.
In terms of the long-term projections for what is happening in the Middle East, this is your area of expertise. I look at this sort of journalistically and as a human onlooker to what is occurring. I hear Mr. Trump talk about, well, the war is essentially what we've won the war, while simultaneously showing images of how the bombing continues. We know Trump has his own sort of way of speaking. I get that. But whatever way I slice this, I just cannot see this being something that doesn't go on for a long, long time in one form or another.
Well, unfortunately, even if I were the kind of expert that would know what would happen next, that doesn't really help much in this situation because it doesn't appear the Americans really know what they're doing.
True.
There's no end state defined, there's no exit strategy, there's no strategy overall, and even the aims of the war seem to shift from minute to minute depending who you're listening to. And within that, of course, we have these predictions or these claims from Trump, either that it's already all over or that it's going to go on indefinitely. So it is completely unpredictable because we don't even know know what they started the war for and when they will declare success.
But of course, if you have, with Mr. Putin involved at whatever level that is, we've already seen the loss of some American personnel so far. The numbers are small, but still significant. If a situation were to arise where a death of any American airman or military member could it tacitly be linked to anything Putin had done, that's going to be game over for Trump's relationship with Vladimir Putin, isn't it?
I wouldn't bet on it. We come back to that same old question of what would Russia have to do to bring Trump to a situation where he's willing not just to criticize Russia verbally, but actually to do something about it. And we simply have not seen that yet. It doesn't matter how many outbursts there are on Truth Social. The action against Moscow is never actually forthcoming, and Moscow's version of events is always the one that wins through. And if we look at the most recent actions by the United States, Russia, of course, is sitting back and enjoying all of this. The spike in oil prices, which have rescued their budget, the lifting of sanctions on Russian oil by the United States, supposedly to bring the oil price back down, but again, something that directly benefits Moscow. The United States firing off its stocks of munitions that it said had to be safeguarded for a conflict with China, and that's why they couldn't be supplied to Ukraine. And, of course, the US alienating all of its allies and partners. All of this is exactly what Putin wants, so he'll be sitting back and relishing it.
Keir, lovely to have you on, sir. Thank you very much for your time. Keir Giles is Senior Fellow at Chatham House and author of Who Will Defend Europe? The long haul. We're in for the long haul. That may not mean the literal military battle with Iran, but the ramifications, the knock-on effects. You often think, well, just somebody must have written it this way. Because everyone's got their paw prints over part of this story at some level. Whether it's us, the Chinese, the Russians, and of course the current government and the United States. And then of course there's all the other countries in Europe as well. There's the ramifications, knock-on effects of this are absolutely massive. Trevor says your Green Party activist, Ashok Kumar, got one thing very wrong. He said politics was moving. The middle class are going to the Greens and the left, and the working class are going to the right, which is a complete reversal of what it used to be. That is very true. Tim says Polanski policy will bankrupt and leave this country skint and open to invasion. It's just going to be very bizarre seeing, if these polls on this are correct and you've got Reform who are going to pretty much take the chunk of things, but you've also got this sea of, I don't know, 40 or 50 Green Party MPs based on this polling. I mean, that is extraordinary, isn't it? Dan is in Liverpool. On back to the economy. Dan, what have you got for us? Hi.
I think, never mind moving left or right, I think we're all moving to a lunatic asylum. Where is this going?
This is true. Yeah.
I've got a friend who's more of an economist than myself, and I'm just explaining his idea. Maybe someone can explain it. You can ask if there's a fellow economist coming on later on or anyone later. But would it not help the economy if we did a structure for businesses paying wages by percentage of gross company profits? So, for instance, if Tesco's or any other supermarket or any retailer store, they pay their staff from someone who's just started, they get 1% of total gross company earnings. So someone who joined Talk Radio, they would get a percentage of low-end Talk Radio gross percentages. And then the government can say, right, we'll have a look at your tax from there. If you make profit, everyone gets a bonus. If they make less money, everyone's pay just go down, and we get rid of a minimum wage from there. It's just a theory, but I would like to know, what do you think of it?
Well, I tell you what's going to be interesting, because that does get mentioned every now and again. Some people would say that's very much a Green Party kind of policy, Dan.
Oh, no, please don't say that. You just made me so upset. Oh.
Well, no, because you have got, like, John Lewis and Waitrose have a kind of cooperative model, don't they? So yes. That they work on the basis that is it the staff all own part of the company or something of that nature? And there used to be, quite generous annual bonuses given out to the people that worked at those companies. I don't know if that's still the case or whether it's still as much as it used to be. So models like that are seen as, a good way to go, and they're great for staff loyalty as well, if the staff feel they're part of something.
I do think that's probably the best way. Like places like Virgin Atlantic, where they do say about the best way to keep staff is to reward them. But maybe that's true for someone else. I hope you have a lovely day, Ian, and take care to everyone else at Talk Radio.
And Dan, you've been brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Dan in Liverpool. What a polite chap as well. Lovely to speak to Dan. Kevin says, Ian, good listening to Connor on the cost of our first guest, one of our first guests on the cost of living references poll. Would you know if he talked about having, people having 25%, 25 quid left over. Was it 40% at any given time only have 25 quid left in their bank or something like that? Do you know if that includes essential costs like kids' clothes, your own clothes, vehicle tax, insurance, MOT, servicing, pet food and pet care, buildings and contents insurance? It's a great point. Have you ever done the list? I did the list about a year ago. I haven't revisited it. So this is about cost of living, your own cost of living, versus your cost of lifestyle. And they're two different things. So you start to write your list and you put down council tax, energy bill, mobile phone bill, water. And when you add all those up, you go, what, it's 500-600 quid, 700, depending on where you live. It's not like you go, wow, that's really doable, right? But that's just the beginning of your list. Then you start to... So when you make the list, just stick it into a little Word document or a Pages document and keep coming back to it over about 3 days, because you suddenly... And Kev's mentioned some things there that I, at the time when I wrote the list, didn't think about. Pet food. So you buy pet food, OK? Pet care. Filling up your car with petrol, you don't always think about that. MOT, insurance, I did put that on the list and sort of divided it by 12, so I worked it out that way. But then, the car went in for a service the other day, and that was 300 and whatever it was quid. So those little costs that just pop up that you have you don't really consider it. And there's loads of others. You'd be really surprised how many things. If you then want to get into cost of lifestyle full on, so that's like going out, and you've obviously, for me, I've got to put the train fare, cost of food, which is lunch, train fare, car parking fare, all of that stuff. And it's amazing, as you go over about 3 days, you suddenly realise that your 600 quid list is now 2,600 quid, and I still haven't bought a pint. And it goes up and up, and you realise, OK, at the moment I'm in a position where I can pay this stuff. But if you're not in that position, as Kevin rightly says, he said, I consider all these things essential costs. I doubt you can afford these from basic pay. You need to do overtime or achieve a bonus. All this and no holiday costs. I always think about the parking ticket. So I got a parking ticket the other day, the one where they photograph you going in and then out the car park, and you forgot. It's a car park I go to every day. I just forgot on this one occasion to pay, and it was 60 quid. And I always think about, well, what do you do if you literally have, if you're one of those with 25 quid in your bank? What do you do? 60 quid parking ticket. I had to pay it because I was the one that broke the rule, albeit accidentally. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Karina says, we used to be a two-car family for as far back as I can remember, but we had to sell one of our cars. It's just not affordable anymore. As for a holiday abroad, haven't had one since 2019 when we used to have a holiday abroad every year. There it is. How many times can we hear these kind of examples? The only thing that counters it, and don't get, you know, I'm as confused as anyone else, that Easter holidays are coming up, and I tell you what, you will queue for God knows how long to get into Legoland every day. If you're going on holiday, the planes will be full. If you want to go to a hotel anywhere in Europe, you might struggle because so many of them will be packed out. And you see that and you think, wow, is this a tale? Is this a tale of two types of people? You know, not everybody on those holidays or at Legoland is stinking rich. Before we talk to Richard in London on Keir Starmer, Voice of Doom. It's day 8 of the Voice of Doom. It's the political mystery voice. It's a very simple question. Who is this?
There's hardly any experience.
Could be left-wing, right-wing, dead or alive, young or old. Who is this?
There's hardly any experience.
Remember, it's political, so you are looking for a politician. If you think you know, 87222. That's 87222 if you know who this is.
There's hardly any experience.
And we shall reveal all. Hopefully, someone's going to hit the bullseye today as we move into the weekend. We'll find out after the news at 3 if anyone has got it correct. Richard in North London on Keir Starmer. Richard, what have you got for us?
Hi, good to talk to you again. I mean, I think the thing on Keir Starmer, Dan Hodges said he's finished. So I'm not too sure about that. And I mean, two issues here. If you look at the recent by-election, Denton and Gorton, Reform went into that thinking that they had a good chance of winning it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why did they select Matt Goodwin? Because, I mean, he's one of their great white hopes. But that didn't go well for them. And I think what we're seeing...
it didn't go badly, did it, either, in terms of... I mean, they wanted to win it, obviously. But, I mean, they came second.
Why race their best candidate? Why race... I mean, this, I think, is... I mean, we can get on to the many problems of Reform's approach, because that's another question. But I just don't think it's a done deal. I think you've got tactical voting, you've got the Greens, and the thing, the Greens, Ian, is it's kind of like we're answering our own question. Yeah. I mean, there is no cost of living crisis. I mean, if you, I said this, we agreed this about 2 or 3 years ago. What happened from about 2008 is because of the financial crisis. Then we had cheap money for about 15 years, and then all of a sudden, after COVID, we had to start putting interest rates up. But people were kind of living on, effectively living on zero interest rates, and that was the kind of obviously that was the kind of fool's paradise. But I mean, you can't say it's a cost of living crisis if you compare the country to, say, the post-war period when you still had rationing until 1950.
That's the bit that I find quite fascinating. You know, in the way that I grew up in the 70s and 80s. I mean, that was a cost of living crisis, but it was never talked about as a cost of living crisis.
No, this is about perception, and I think one of the sort of long-term problems that we've got here is actually if you look over sort of 70, 80 years, we've gone from being a very strong manufacturing economy to an economy which is now more a service economy. And the reality is, Ian, I mean, if you compare Europe to China and Southeast Asia, we actually don't make very many things anymore. So China is now the workshop of the world, and obviously places like South Korea, Taiwan are doing very well. You know, mobile phones come from there. South Korea even selling artillery to the Ukraine. So it's kind of I think the problem here is we've got to start having a conversation. Why do Europeans expect to be rich when actually our economies don't produce that much wealth?
It's a great question. We're expecting something to come hurtling around the corner as if it happens by some kind of divine right. And yeah, you might be onto something there, Richard. That those days may be gone for good. We need a rethink. Richard, I've got to move because the news is upon us. I love that debate. That's a great debate. Are we just looking through the wrong end of the flipping telescope? Cost of living crisis, compare it to where this country was 30, 40 years ago. If you were a working class family, then you didn't expect, we weren't surrounded by so much temptation in terms of retail and possibilities, instant gratification, phones, delivered food, choice of God knows what. It was limited, so maybe that explains some of it, but not all of it. We expect too much is, I think, the central point there. Here's the voice of doom.
There's hardly any experience.
87222, if you know who that is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is indeed the Afternoon Empire. Welcome back to the home of common sense. Loads of elements and strands to the subjects out there today. We've been naturally discussing Britain's flatlining economy. January was an absolute disaster for Chancellor Rachel Reeves and this government. They're preparing for an even bigger fallout as a result of the war in Iran. How do we kickstart the UK economy? Or do you agree with our caller Richard before the news, who said, actually, we're expecting too much out of economy of our kind? Thoughts on that? Also this afternoon, a trustee of the charitable arm of the group behind the banned Al-Quds Day March yelled death to the IDF and also said that Iran's late leader makes us proud. This was last week's demonstration. They were hoping to do another demonstration, a big protest this weekend. That's been cancelled, but they can have a static get-together, whatever that means. And 50 Labour councillors have defected to the Greens within the past 6 months ahead of the May 7th local elections. Are we about to see a Green versus Reform setup come the next general election? More on that story, more comments from you, 0344 499 1000. Trevor says the only reason we can afford to go to places like Legoland and eat out and even holidays within the UK is using supermarket and credit card loyalty points. They really do add up if you use it well and pay the card off 100% each month, which isn't always easy. We've been to Legoland, I don't know how many times, and each time has been on Tesco club card points. I mean, obviously, once you're in there, then you take your packed lunch as well, because once you take out a mortgage, don't you, to buy a burger in any of those kind of places. But Trevor's absolutely correct. Yeah, you can They do work in that respect. I know you've sort of essentially paid for it in one respect, perhaps, but you take the point. Trevor, thank you for that. Now, Raza Kazim is the trustee of the charitable group that organises the Al-Quds Day March. He was the one that was filmed at a separate protest, as I was just alluding to, yelling death to the IDF. He was praising the late Ayatollah, saying, this man makes us proud. We know, of course, this comes against the backdrop of the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, who's banned the march this weekend, but a static demonstration will go ahead. Let's have a listen to the Home Secretary.
The Commissioner has clearly stated that the Metropolitan Police's view is that serious public disorder cannot be avoided unless a prohibition under Section 13 is introduced.
Well, there it is, but something will still happen. Let's speak with Catherine Perez-Shagdam, an Iranian expert. Catherine, good afternoon to you. So it seems that some sort of static protest is going to take place, which sounds... I mean, am I missing a point? It sounds a bit... If it wasn't so serious, this would just be funny, if that makes sense.
Yes, I would love to be able to laugh about it. Look, my organisation, We Believe Alliance, you know, in partnership with Stop the Hate UK, had a lot to do with this ban. And we worked terribly hard in making sure that the Home Office actually sees the light. Unfortunately, I think that that light has been dimmed ever so slightly, but the fact that now they decided to stand still. I don't see how that makes any difference. The message is the same. They are supportive of the RSGC, an organization that I would like to see proscribed, as well as many people. I'm sure you would agree with me, as it represents an abominable and maniacal regime that claims something between 30 to 40,000 lives just in the past few weeks. And yet, we are supposed to believe that the government is doing something. I don't believe they're doing enough because they do not want to upset people. And I would advise them to make a few enemies along the way. Maybe they would make new friends.
Years ago, I don't know if you have any memory of this at all, Catherine, but when members of Sinn Féin were wanting to speak on the media, the government at the time banned their voices from being heard. So they used a voiceover person to dub the voice. And the upshot of that was that the news at 10 o'clock at night, it looked ridiculous when you had Jerry Adams mouthing his words, but an actor speaking the word. It just looked ridiculous. And I'm reminded of that when I look at this. You're not allowed to protest, but you can get together and not move. I mean, really?
I'm with you on this one. This is ridiculous. No, this is yet another loophole that they're allowing those people to exploit. And I'm wondering, I mean, we're becoming like a Swiss cheese in this country whereby, you know, the law is easily kind of contravened and you can find ways to make it work for you and still be a terrorist.
Yeah.
I'd like to stop.
It is bizarre. And, you know, I sometimes do find myself compromised when it comes to things that we ban. You know, but the right to protest is, you know, part and parcel of living in a Western democracy such as ours. Naturally, we look at places like Iran where you can't protest about anything you like. And, you know, we're taking a different position to that. However, when you have groups of people that are celebrating the life of a man, as you said at the beginning, responsible for tens of thousands of deaths. And remember, that's just this year. I mean, if we went back since 1979, goodness me, how many people would we be talking about there? And we have students on campuses. We have this group and various others who are happy not just to talk about Iran and death to the IDF, death to the West, whatever. I'm sure it's all of that, but also celebrating the life of the former Ayatollah. I mean, there's something crazy about this.
Sure, if I may, there's another point that I would like to make that people tend to forget about, is that our British forces and our British soil was actually attacked and continues to be under attack by the likes of the RSGC and the Islamic Republic of Iran. So when I see people quite happily in the center of London defending those very hands that want to cause harm to our British troops on our British soil and violate our sovereignty, I take offense. And this is not something that you could just brush off. And so it doesn't matter. Let's allow them to exercise their free speech. No, those people are literally committing, in my mind, what I consider to be treason against the British people and our national sovereignty. And I think that the government is well positioned to do something about it because that's what they were elected to do.
Indeed. Well, look how many people got arrested during the Palestine Action protest because the government said, sorry, this is an organisation that we view as essentially a terrorist sympathising organisation, so you're going to get arrested. These guys have got a free pass. I would argue that they're not just people with weird opinions, they are dangerous people with weird opinions.
They are not only dangerous people with extremely strange and weird opinions, as you so eloquently put, but also who entertain extremely concerning friendships. Several people who are members of this Islamic Human Rights Commission, that in my mind, the human rights part is slightly comical, but no matter, entertain friendship with the late Ayatollah Khamenei and others. So those people are directly responsible for committing crimes against humanity.
Yep.
Allow me to remind your public as well that those people were responsible for commandeering October 7th, let's not forget, and that they also have blood on their hands because the ISGC just targeted a British base.
Sure.
And this is not the first time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a confusing picture and quite how they managed to. I mean, it's all very well Shabana Mahmood saying, look, don't worry, we're on it. But they're not really on it, are they, if they're allowing this static protest to take place? And I've heard them say very little about students having, you know, almost a day of mourning for this man.
Look, we're in a position in the UK, and this is serious because people, you know, keep talking about, oh, we're such a great democracy, nothing bad can ever happen. I beg to differ.
Yeah.
If you look at Iran prior to 1979, Iran was a wonderful society. I'm not saying it was a democratic society because it was an absolute monarchy, granted. That said, people were well educated and they were sophisticated enough to understand that freedom meant something. Now, we're in a position where the alliance in between the left and Islamist radicals could endanger this country just as it did Iran. Iran fell to a coup d'etat that was literally set up by the left, the radical left, and radical Muslims. We are finding ourselves in the same position where our youth, students at university are co-opted into an ideology that is frighteningly radical, fascist, and dangerous. Also, for those people who continue to believe the fallacy that fascism is on the right, I would beg them to read a book, history book preferably. Fascism is very much on the left. I give you Nazi Germany and communism.
Yeah. You are 100% correct. Listen, it's been brilliant to speak with you, Catherine. It's a shame it's under these kind of confusing and troubling circumstances, but we will, I'm sure, speak again. Catherine Perez Shagdam, an Iranian expert. She's absolutely on it there and forthright in her belief, and it's the correct belief. It's, you know, sometimes there is only one answer. People can have their own opinions, they can't have their own facts, okay? Iranian regime, past and current present, former Ayatollah, current Ayatollah, these are very bad people. That is not an opinion, that is a statement of fact. The receipts are there, the evidence is there, anyone can see it. So who the hell are the people in our country who are happy to go out there and make these kind of celebrations and moments of marking the death of, the passing of, the mourning of, the anti-Israel stuff, the anti-Semitic stuff? These are, we don't want these people among us, but many of them are Brits, okay, in you know, passport terms, they're Brits. I don't think there's anything very British about the belief some of these people have. And of course, we've seen at some of those protests, I think the one in Birmingham, you know, people turning up, former terrorists showed up and he's hoping to stand for election. Are you allowed to do that? Can you stand for election if you've been in jail for terror offences? I assumed you couldn't, but maybe you can. 0344 499 1000. Back on the issue of the economy, Simon makes a good point. Normally after Christmas, the economy grows. What has gone wrong? So this is the first set of books after Christmas. And Simon is quite right. There is, you know, often an artificial, but there is a rise. You know, there's a bit of a feel-good factor post-Christmas, and people are getting back into it because you've got the sales and that kind of stuff. Maybe February or March, you might take a little downturn, but this is immediately after Christmas. And Chris says, holiday, I can't afford my heating. This Labour and the Tories have destroyed us. Yeah, it predates. A lot of this does predate this government. I just think this lot have taken it to new disturbing levels. Sean's in Northampton. What are you making of it, Sean? Afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you. I certainly agree with your last statement. I've never known a government like this in my 66 years.
Yeah.
It's just becoming comical to watch now. Actually, it's becoming very depressing to watch at the moment.
Yeah.
You now know that those people on the TV are just lying. Every time they look in that camera, they're lying, and no one seems to do anything about it. But that's not what I called for anyway, but
that's
just
right.
to set the tone.
Yeah. The economy.
No, I like the economy now. I mean, obviously after COVID, I mean everything went through the roof at COVID. If you look at the food and you know house bills, and they was able to excuse it by the fact that petrol prices went up, diesel prices, so the delivery prices went up, but nothing's ever gone down. It's not gone down again since then. I've got a real horrible feeling that we're going to find ourselves in exactly the same place in 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And of course, we won't see any reversal when the oil prices come down. And what you said to one of your guests earlier, I don't know what the exact words were, but you asked how does any government get us out of this mess? I really think that someone has just got to stand up now and say there is no taxable way out of this mess. Really, we've just got to cut the spending down to what this little country can afford. We've got to start trying to be a world power, which we no longer are. And there's so many little things that this government could do to ease everyone's cost of living if they really wanted to. But they've got no ambition for this country. They literally just seem to be caring about, well, apart from anything else, the country's Muslims. But I've not been in a nasty way, but that's all they care about. That's all he ever talks about. And I think that the white British have just been washed down the road.
Yeah, and if he's not even if that turns out to be a perception rather than a reality, perceptions are strong, and it's not as if perceptions don't count for anything. They do. The idea that Starmer isn't aware of that, when you know, we were talking about these kind of anti-Semitic marches and you know, full of people saying horrible things. It's like, at what point would Starmer not come? And I've said this every day this week. Stand on the steps of Downing Street and get really bloody angry about it. But we never hear that. It's not in his blood, is it? Really?
No. Well, as a matter of fact, if you look at the way when he's talking about us, he's literally got contempt in his face. And I'm starting to become completely paranoid. But he just seems to be... I don't even know when it started. When did this Protect Islam start? I mean, they've been over here for donkey's years now, since Idi Amin kicked most of them out, and then all the black people. Nobody wants any... I don't think racism doesn't come into it. It's not even ideology that we're supporting.
It's a cult. There's a cultural clash in some areas. Look, I know I have to say this every time. Not every Muslim has some bizarre extreme views. We're mostly talking about sort of radicalised extremists, Islamists, those kind of people that live among us. We never, you know, I've been doing this job forever, Sean. I don't ever, you know, back in the day, I don't remember talking about this as a subject. Never used to talk about trans issues as a subject either. But suddenly, in the last 20 minutes, it seems, these things have gone to the top of the agenda, and sometimes there are good reasons for it. Go on, what do you think?
Well, I think a lot of it over here is because we've become so secular. I mean, the very first thing the Archbishop of Canterbury said, that lady, was I think I should baptise all these Muslims coming over here.
Oh, yeah, she did, yeah. I mean, really? Is that the best we've got as the head of the church?
Well, it's diabolical. It's not even bad. It's pathetic. Yeah. If that's the best she can do, she should get out there, start attracting people back to their own religion in a different way that suits 2026. But can I just finish up here by saying that I would just like anybody, any academic, to tell me how and when we've arrived at a situation where we're at two-tier justice. Muslims are being let off for things like 1 year for rape. People try and deny they've got gangs. You got Sadiq Khan in London hiding the London gangs. When did this country become so corrupt? Because it's just suddenly dawned on me. I'm 66 years old, and I've never liked politicians, but I always thought we could trust them to a certain degree. But now it's like, listen, this is a load of liars.
I hear what you're saying, and there is, again, perceptions and reality. Sean, thank you very much indeed. I mean, people do... There's no... I mean, when it comes to... And thank you to Sean in Northampton. I mean, it is worth saying, when it comes to trying to find consistency in the criminal justice system, like prison centres, there's no there's no like moment where somebody goes, oh, he's a Muslim, so he's going to get less for rape, whether he was white, black, or any other colour for that matter. But the perception of that is there. Is there a two-tier justice system? Well, again, in 20-odd years of doing this job, we've always had those arguments. I'm not defending people who went to jail and shouldn't go to jail. You know, the Connolly thing, despicable and all the rest of it, that's not where I think our jail time should be. There's another fella at the moment. Is he called Wayne somebody? I think he's in jail for a pretty similar thing, not getting quite the airtime. Again, you know, probably a bit of piece of muck as a human. I don't know. I don't know the bloke. I'm just assuming from what we hear. But I don't think jail is necessarily the place where you'd put someone who'd said some even, you know, horrific stuff on social media. So we've got that going on. But then there are very specific reasons why during heightened times of riot, courts come down on people. And there's all sorts of conspiracies around it as well. It's a confused time, and we lack consistency in so many areas. 0344 499 1000. Let's do the voice of doom. I'm hoping we've got a winner. I'm about to find out. Have we got a winner? Let's hear the voice again, Amy.
There's hardly any experience.
These are some of the guesses before we reveal who that is. Is it Rory Bremner impersonating Ben Habib, says somebody. It's a nice guess, but it's not correct. Chris Bryant, no. Rory Stewart, no. Margaret Thatcher, no. Alistair Strathern, that name keeps coming up, which is odd because I'm not absolutely sure who he is. Well, he's a Scottish MP, I know that, I think. Am I right? Nadeem Zahawi, no. Robert Jenrick, no. Norman Lamont, no. Enoch Powell, no. Roy Hattersley, no. But we haven't got a winner. Sorry, I took you right to the bridge there. No, we haven't got a winner. It rolls over and it comes back on Monday after a nice rest for the weekend. Now, before we just take a moment's pause, and we are going to be back with more of your calls and messages, a reminder, we are giving you the chance to win and win big. It's 2 hospitality tickets for the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, Sunday, 5th of July. This is the full racing green trackside experience. It's an absolute beauty. It's the ultimate setup for race day. You get exclusive grandstand seats at the Loop and the Village Corners. Really crucial if you love a Grand Prix at Silverstone. Plus, inner track access to watch the drivers arriving at the paddock. As well as that, access to hospitality shuttle bus for easy on-site transport, racing simulators, live music between sessions, all-day street food and an open bar. Have a listen now to find out how you could be in with a chance to win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 20th of March 2026 at 4 p.m. That's when you need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
We're talking cost of living. This one, interesting, from Robert, who says, I'm not poor by any means, but I am now feeling it. Used to eat out 3 or 4 times a week, now down to 1 or 2. A simple pub lunch in a sunny Berkshire village can easily be 80 to 100 quid if you include a glass of wine. That's absolutely bang on. I cannot tell you how much that side of things resonates when I think of just taking the kids a couple of weeks before Christmas. Me and my 2 boys, not even my other half, just the 3 of us, went to like Pizza Express or something, and I can't remember what it came to, bearing in mind, so I'm with 2 kids, one of them doesn't eat much at all. I'm hardly on the ale. I had a pint, and I can't, was it 110 quid or something? I mean, just, how did that ever become a thing? When we've gone out as a family, mother-in-law as well, I mean, you're into the, you put a 2 in front of that figure. For a bit of dinner in a standard family restaurant. We're not talking about, sort of exclusive boutique restaurants or some West End job. This is high street stuff, Wagamama's, those kind of places. This will be Lenny down in Ashford. Lenny, what have you got for us? Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ian. Well, something's come up since I phoned in.
Oh, yeah.
And when I think you'll be interested in is I was trying to debate with you before on the aces that Starmer's got up his sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
Why his job is secure.
Okay.
And something's come up today where you was talking about taxidermists.
Yes.
And Lammy's dad was a taxidermist.
Who's dad?
Lemmy.
Lemmy from Motorhead or David Lammy?
No, David Lammy.
Oh, David Lammy.
Yeah, and that
his dad was a taxidermist, was he?
Yeah.
I'm getting confirmation of this stuffed-based news.
Yeah, and what it is, and Starmer making him a deputy prime minister has given him more security, because if ever Lammin took over, he'd stuff everybody.
Well, that's a very... if you hadn't said it, I was going to jump in with it. Lenny, that is brilliant. Yeah, he would stuff everybody.
That's it. So he's one of the aces up.
That's exactly right. I had no idea that we have so much fun with the I'm the son of a toolmaker. But
yeah.
I don't think it's hardly mentioned that I'm the son of a taxidermist.
Yeah. You look it up.
No, Finn, our producer, has confirmed it. He's gone to the Association of Chief Taxidermists and discovered that Stuffable Lammy did exist as a tax. I don't know if he's still alive, his dad. But...
Yeah, I can't tell you that, but...
terrible that you haven't got this information, Lenny. We did...
Well-trained.
Well-trained, indeed. On just before we talk about the wider issue of the economy. The reason that came up, of course, is because somebody was talking about the cost of people having cheap funerals now. And we went into sort of, which is slightly inevitable and rather tempting phone-in territory to mention, ideally, which way would you like to be remembered? Mummified or, a statue, buried, cremated, all of this kind of stuff. And we would just raise the point that has come up before as to why humans can't be stuffed when you can get your cat or your dog stuffed, but no one does it with humans.
Well, I can be helpful there to you again.
Oh, there you go, Lenny. You're full of it today. What's happening? What can you tell us?
Well, a lot of people who can't afford their funerals and whatever, what they're doing, they're leaving the body to science, and it don't cost nothing.
That's a very good point. Yeah, but you tend to have a memorial, I suppose, then, don't you?
Yeah, you just have a day of remembrance, and that's it. With a
are they oversubscribed? How many people? I don't think I've ever known anybody who's. I've been to. I haven't been to loads and loads of funerals, but I've been to enough of them. I've never heard anyone I know say, "Oh yeah, we're donating his body to science."
Yeah, well, and
but I know you can do that, but I've just never. Now you've mentioned it, I've never really thought about it. I've never heard anyone make that claim.
It's common practice in Spain, because in Spain it's even more expensive a funeral than what it is here.
Yeah.
And what the trouble was, when they did it, after a year, if they never used the body, they brought it back. And so they had to have the funeral.
Oh, so they had to have the funeral. So it was. Well, that's a raw deal, isn't it? So suddenly you're told, sorry, Alf was of no use to us. So unfortunately, you're going to have to go ahead and organise a funeral.
Yeah. So see, I could talk on that subject as well.
Yeah.
But anyway, regarding what we originally was.
The economy.
Now I've got 40 years' experiences in Ashford, dealing with small business people. I created 2 very successful businesses dealing with small business people. And what it is, the one thing you've got to have to start a small business is confidence.
Of course.
And the way the Labour Party have gone, there is no confidence in this country of creating a small business, and and you cannot do it with their policies of Rayner and Reeves. They haven't got a clue.
Nope.
And with a devious, I'd put him down as a devious Prime Minister with no dignity or integrity. The last thing you want to do is put your house up for security to start a small business.
Yeah, massive risk, right?
That is it. And until they change their attitude, there'll be no growth in our country at all. You've got to have confidence to commit to create growth.
Well, confidence is key, of course. What's interesting, it's a bit like buying a house, though, isn't it? It was, if you started a business, you're in Ashford, which, as you know, I know well. It used to be my hometown for forever. Although it was not necessarily something everybody did, it wasn't controversial to start a business, was it? It was brilliant. Oh, have you heard about Mick? He's starting a new business. Now, it is a bit controversial because people talk incessantly about that risk.
Yeah, well, I mean, say, I dealt with small businesses for 40 years, and what it is, I mean, it was very difficult in Ashford to create businesses because, if you know, Ashford had the reputation of the town of 40 thieves.
Yeah.
And now you know that as well as I do. And that made things difficult to create businesses in Ashford, but I overcome them. Because I kept fighting.
Good.
And one that I created was a 4-acre industrial estate, which has now got 30 small businesses on it, all employing many people.
Which one was that?
At Kingsnorth. You know what used to be Kingsnorth Trailers?
Yes.
Where they used to have the cannons all over the road and that?
Yeah, of course.
Well, I purchased that and created it into a small industrial estate, and that is 4 acres. Now, I don't own it anymore, but there is now.
There's a legacy there of what you did, Lenny. I've got to step in only because we've overshot and we've got to go to the races because it's big, a big week, of course, for racing. You've been brilliant, Lenny. Thank you very much indeed. I love Lenny's backstory. I will find out more about it at some point, I promise. 25 to 4. It's racing. Is it greyhound racing or is it? It's horse racing, I'm being told. Horse racing is going on. The place is called Cheltenham, and we'll get the details from our man Rupert Bell. He's down there, and he comes next.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk 0344 499 1000. Christine says the funeral director I used when my father died was leaving her body to science. And this is outside Edinburgh. I don't think you just leave yourself outside Edinburgh. I think the story is from outside Edinburgh. You just don't hear of it that often, I think was the point. We've got so much diversity in what we're talking about here this afternoon, including racing, of course, because we know the Cheltenham Festival 2026 reaching its climax today with the Gold Cup. Rupert Bell, horse racing expert, big friend of the show, of course. Rupert, good afternoon to you. I mean, just give us, if you could, Rupert, a little over in the horse racing calendar. Where does the Gold Cup sit?
It is the ultimate challenge of a chaser. Obviously, the Grand National, I suppose, from popularity stakes, but in terms of quality, this is the very best, and this year's renewal feels sort of better than usual. Just this, we've only got 10 runners, but you can make a case for an awful lot of them. And obviously, a lot of focus in the build-up has been on Harry Redknapp's The Duke Mocks Man, and he has won the King George in dramatic fashion over Christmas, and so a lot of popular support for Harry Redknapp's horse. But the Irish come with a strong challenge. We've even got a French raider as well to add another dimension to the proceedings. So all in all, this is the climax of a fabulous week. We've got a crowd of 68,000 sellout crowd, which is fantastic as well. So they're all getting buzzed up now with the horses just making their way into the parade ring. Fantastic.
It's a nice financial win, of course, if you take the Gold Cup as well, isn't it?
Well, yep, you get around about 350,000 if you should happen to win. But, you know, sometimes these horses that are running here cost an awful lot of money, but not all of them. For instance, Gold Tweet cost their owners just 14,000 euros. So it is possible to find the sort of, and that in horse racing terms is a cheap one, but normally you can find things travelling for sort of 200, 300, 400,000 pounds to run in this sort of race. So it can be a very expensive business. So it's hard to get a return on your investment. You do it for the love.
Indeed. Well, that said, Gold Tweet is 100 to 1, I understand it. So maybe that explains something.
Well, it does a surprise entry, but the owners were desperate to have a runner at Cheltenham, and it has run at Cheltenham before, but they're just excited to be here. But you never know, it might run into a place. We've had a bit of rain around, and perhaps that will suit the horse as well. So
indeed,
for the French backers, but I think we haven't had a 100 to 1 winner since Norton's Coin won it back in 1990.
Got it. Nice recollection there as well, as we would expect, of course, from you, Rupert. Finally, then, I mean, who is likely to be carrying away the Gold Cup in all probability? And I know you can never fully guarantee with horse racing.
Well, you know me well enough, Ian. Dear listener, I'm going to go for Haiti Couleurs, trained by Rebecca Curtis on the lovely spot on the west coast of Wales, ridden by Sean Bowen, champion jockey-elect, but he's never ridden a festival winner, and I think the horse definitely will like the rain-softened ground. So I'm taking a chance with Haiti Couleurs, but I'm expecting a real thriller.
Good work. And have a wonderful time, Rupert. Thank you, Rupert Bell. There he is, horse racing expert, live at Cheltenham. I have to say, and I've probably mentioned this before, I think even Finn knows more than me on this. I have no idea what, 11 to 2 means. I honestly don't know. All Finn knows is he's down 50 quid today. 7 to 2 on. You know, when you get to... I used to be fascinated listening to two horse people speak. It's a bit like... I don't mean horse people like some kind of mad, B-movie. The horse people. Bloke with a mane or stuff. I'm talking about literally... You know when you hear people talk who know their stuff? Was it Tommy Boyd that used to have a good memory of horse racing? I think it was. And they would say things, do you remember in 1972 when, Grandmother's Elbow came in at 7 to 2 on, and it was, that was great, wasn't it? It was owned by Pearl Muldoon, and she was and she had this horse and they had that, and they could cite the odds and they could talk about what, these moments that happened, the final furlong, the photo finish, and they just knew that stuff. And it was amazing to listen to. But I didn't have a clue what they were talking about. I had no idea what any of it meant. And when you get I've never been in a betting shop. What about, is that a thing? I don't know. I think I did go in one once, but it's because I bought an Irish lottery ticket, which you could buy in a betting shop, but you couldn't buy, and I think that's probably still the case, maybe, for the Irish lottery. You didn't win anything, by the way. 0344 499 1000 is where you'll find us. Back to the phones. This will be Joan, who's over there in Sunderland. How you doing, Joan?
All right, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. What are you thinking?
How to grow the economy? Well, the first thing
what do you do?
A sensible person would do was use their oil and gas, have energy security, keep the lights on, and have cheap energy for their industries. Get rid of some of this rubbish for the workers' rights things. We've got money to spare for migrants. That could be used for something else. The NHS doesn't need cash. It needs auditors for fraud and for waste. And look at the people who associate with them, these non-for-profit people. And we could save millions, 700 million to France for kissing migrants on the cheek and wishing them bon voyage. Pakistan, they could buy their own contraceptives. The Chagos Islands, we could save money there. You could save money left, right and centre.
Now, I'd like to think, Joe, even by the heady levels of ineptitude of this government, that Rachel Reeves, when she sits there with her advisors, and, when they're in the Treasury, they've got, not just the politicians, but, these sort of top economists, and somebody must bring this one up. When they get round the table and Rachel says, is there any other business? Someone must go, yeah, we've got a big list here, Chancellor, and, Joan's come up with this list. It can't be something they've not thought about, is my point.
I can't see the madness at all, to be quite honest. And if that fool Lammy is on about reparation, bring it on, because the Labour Party will be killed in one instant. Where does he think we're getting the money from? These people, what parallel universe do these people live on?
Well, that's a completely fair question. What parallel universe do they live on? Joan, I love it, and that's great. Thank you very much indeed. You'd like to think that surely these points would come up, wouldn't they? Often when us, as in the public, have a suggestion, one of the things you're told, I can't remember which, whether it was a benefit or something, that the argument was it should be means tested. I think it might have been winter fuel allowance. This is years ago. Should it be means tested? And the argument that always came back was you can't, it's too expensive to means test it. By the time you put the system in place to means test it, then whatever you've saved, you would have spent on the system and the people that have got to work with it. So therefore, it's not a good idea. Well, that might have been the case 10, 15 years ago. Today, with digital technology, AI, goodness knows what else, I'm refusing to believe you can't, they know what your tax bill is going to look like. There's all sorts of algorithmic things that happen to make assessments quite quickly, which previously would have seemed impossible. There used to be filing cabinets sitting there, with millions of different bits of paper in them, all of which could now collectively sit probably on one laptop. So the idea that you can't means test this stuff, I don't know the answer to that, because it is pretty obvious, isn't it, when you look at it and go, right, what's the big... Have they even got a name for it, maybe, like a pet name in the Treasury? The list that they talk about where these are the areas that you could save money without anybody ever really feeling that they've lost anything as a result. You'd like to think that would come up. And if it does come up, what would be the reason to reject it? Because what Jones just said makes perfect sense. This one in from Chris. Near me, there's a pub / hotel. They are running a special offer. Pie, peas and a pint for 30 quid. 30 quid, says Chris. That used to feed 3 people. Yeah, that's the territory we're in, isn't it? pie, peas and a pint, and they're advertising that just 30 quid. Just 30 only? You can't put the word just and only in front of figures like 30 quid when you're selling pies and a pint. And of course you're bound to buy another pint while you're there as well. 0344 499 1000. Back with more from you coming next on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. What are we hearing? Grand Prix detail. Formula One will cancel next month's Bahrain and Saudi Arabia races. In the next 48 hours, that announcement, I think, officially going to be made, with the season set to be dropped, therefore, to 22 races. No official confirmation from the sport today, but Telegraph Sport understands a decision has already been made, with the conflict in the Middle East not going away anytime soon. Freight would need to start being shipped to the Middle East next week or so, which has focused minds. But the final decision has looked obvious for the last week or so. When you think about it now, I'm saying that out loud, it's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it? Because firstly, you've got the event itself, which becomes rather attractive for people with bad intentions, but just the physicality and the practicality of getting everything over there. Clearly, they thought, and we'll await the official announcement. That seems to be the word on the street. Bahrain and Saudi Grand Prix cancelled. Karen is in Bournemouth. Back to the economy. Karen, what have you got for us? Hi.
Hi, Ian. Well, I reckon the first thing they should do is cancel all council tax rises across the country next month.
I like that. It's a good start, isn't it? No council tax rises. They don't do very much with it anyway, do they, sir?
Well, no. I mean, my council tax is going up 6.7 to 6.7%.
Yeah.
And, you know, then the council announces they're giving themselves pay rises.
Yeah.
Second thing is I would cancel all MPs' pay rises.
I like it.
3 years, because, again, and on top of that, they should pay their own gas and electric and council taxes for their second home.
You see, if you went through, I know we keep saying this today, Karen, but if you went through the big old list, I said at the beginning of the show, if we sat here long enough, we could come up with 100 things. From the smaller stuff, like, you know, MP salaries, OK, it's a lot of money collectively, but in the grander scale, on its own, it's not that big. But then there's the real big stuff, like getting into welfare and all sorts of other issues that you could means test, NHS wastage, where, you know, as we heard from Joan earlier, it needs an auditor, not extra money. If you put it all together, we could come up with 100 things, and I reckon we could probably save about 10 billion by about 6 p.m.
Yeah, but the thing is, we need to do it now. Rather, you know, these long-term plans are all very wonderful, but there's no point in having them because by the time they actually want to implement them,
correct,
they'll be completely bankrupt.
Why does it take so long to implement this stuff? If they want to put something up in a budget, do you remember they always go, "Oh, petrol will go up at 6 p.m. this evening." They don't say, "Oh, it's going to be next year or in 2 years' time." It happens pretty much instantly. I can't understand why they couldn't sit down and have, you know, if there was a chancellor sitting here talking with us, Karen, I'm sure they would give us a reason why.
Yeah, but we haven't got a chancellor. We got a grifter.
Got a lot of grifters.
A lot of grifters.
There's no doubt about that. There's a lot of grifters. Great call, Karen. Thank you very much indeed. Love the council tax rises, reduced tax on fuel. Keep throwing that kind of stuff into the mix. Eventually, surely, by any measure, you are going to arrive at a substantial amount of cash, yeah? But you'd have to. So what's the reason why they don't go for Route 1 on this stuff? Stephen is in East Yorkshire. On cost of living, Stephen, what have you got for us?
Yeah, has it ever occurred to anybody that this is done deliberately? There's a strategy called the Clowood-Piven strategy, about how you destroy a state by overwhelming its social economic systems through mass migration, overloading and unemployment, health, welfare, power, you name it.
What did you say the strategy was called?
The Clowood-Piven strategy. It was developed in the 60s by Democrats in the United States, and one of the big primary things is you have mass migration that overloads your welfare state. Obviously, they don't have the sort of like health system that we have in the United States. And you make energy very expensive, so you destroy your infrastructure in your manufacturing base.
So this is kind of like, right, so this was I'm just getting a bit more information on this, was a kind of, almost like a left-wing policy.
It is absolutely a die-hard socio-communist sort of like ideology.
Because there's also the Kaligi plan, you've heard of that?
Yes, I've heard of that as well. Yeah.
But am I right in saying, as interesting as this is, Stephen, that both of these theories are cobblers?
Well, not necessarily so. If you look at it now, the energy prices, we've got the most expensive energy in the democratic world, really.
But who would be implementing it, and in whose interest would it be?
It's in the interest of whoever's got the control over it, basically. You know, the energy companies don't necessarily want you to have cheap energy. I used to work in the energy sector for nearly 20 years. So if you could get free energy or next to nothing energy, it's not necessarily in their bottom line best interest. But if they can charge record amounts...
Yeah, but are you saying that the energy companies are manufacturing migration overload?
No, not necessarily. It's the whole sort of like ideology of the left of how to implement certain sections of these policies which will have a cumulative effect, which puts us basically in the position where you won't have no money. You'll have very little left to be able to buy anything, do whatever you want, you know. whether you consider it sort of like the westernised hedonistic lifestyle. And
so that disappears, and everybody just lives a kind of fairly frugal. Everybody earns kind of the same as each other. There's not much to do, and
a small percentage who they consider, well, maybe you're the ones at the top of the sort of like the food chain, as you would call it.
Yeah,
they can have the sort of like the lifestyle they want, but you can't go on your holiday this year. You can't run a car. You're more or less on subsistence. That's the ultimate goal of that policy.
Do you come at this, Steve, from isn't it interesting? It feels a bit like this sometimes, or do you genuinely believe this is what's happening?
A bit of both. With some of the things that's happening, with the way they're trying to ramp up the prices and control things on how much you should be able to, maybe if you wanted to go on 2 holidays instead of 1 holiday a year, they're trying to push an agenda with sort of like the green climate sort of thing. Oh, it must be net zero.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually work in aviation fuel at the present moment in time, and I'm seeing how much they're trying to clamp down on that now, and people being able to go on holiday and the cost of living, and they're trying to push this as a means of control. I honestly do believe that now. You can't have red meat. You've had 2 steaks this week.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's often been, when we talk about carbon credits and stuff like that. I mean, it's quite a Chinese thing, isn't it? But listen, I love it. I love it. The only thing that's missing from me and you talking about this, Steve, is a few pints, because these conversations are much more interesting when you've had alcohol.
Well, you can't do that in the pub now, can you? Because Keir Starmer wants to make that illegal, doesn't he?
That's true. They'll ban beer. Stephen, it's a great call. Thank you, mate. Stephen in East Yorkshire on the Cloward Piven strategy. I think it is largely conspiratorial, but sometimes things happen and you think, well, I can't blame people for thinking that. This one from Robert, who says, I had a girlfriend years ago who had a share in a horse which was racing on a Saturday. So she went to the race while I was at work on Saturday morning. I finished around noon and thought, I'll put a few quid on the horse. It was 10 to 1. I put a tenner on for a place, and after an hour waiting in the bookies, it came 4th. I asked if I won anything and was handed back my tenner. An hour later, my life rented out for a 10 spot. Never since, never again, says Robert. Thank you, mate, for that. Here comes Kevin O'Sullivan, who has about 3 seconds.
Well,
what have you been doing out there?